or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And, of course, welcome back. Yes, my friends, you know what time it is. It's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. We are here live in the studio today on June 11th, 2026. We got a lot to talk about. I didn't have time to make a custom thumbnail today because I just had a very, very full day. I had 2 interviews that were pre-scheduled. I had my GART VIP stream that I did over on Badlands. I had Taking It Back with Adel, which was the next to last episode of Taking It Back. If you guys watch that show, then make sure you tune in next week because it will be the final episode of Taking It Back. I am sad about that, but it is going to take a little bit off of my plate, which I'm kind of grateful for. I am going to miss hanging out with Adel every Thursday, though. And Frank occasionally. I love Frank, but I know that he's super busy with his family and his own show. So it is bittersweet. Well, guys, things are still popping off in the UK. President Trump has made a couple of very important statements in the last 24 hours. I think that he is using the leverage of his office to finally force the issue of election integrity. Of course, there is much to report on in regards to the Carmelo Anthony and the Austin Metcalf situation. Both Carmelo's family and Jeff Metcalf, the father of Austin Metcalf, are out there speaking and getting pretty honest. So do me a favor, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show, and then just sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn because we're getting into it right about now. Recently, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. So here's the reality. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium every single year, but we produce less than 1 million pounds domestically. That leaves America 98% dependent on foreign suppliers for our supply. It's a critical vulnerability for national security, power generation, and advanced weapons systems. With Russia controlling much of the global enrichment capacity and escalating tensions in Iran threatening nuclear supply, the stakes could not be higher, which is why the White House has made it crystal clear. America must develop its own supply chain. And this is where Kirkstone Metals comes in. They trade under KSM in Canada and KSMCF in the US. They've got decades of uranium and junior mining expertise, and Kirkstone's leadership team knows how to turn exploration projects into real value. But the question is, can they do it again? Kirkstone controls 2 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Athabasca Basin. This is the richest uranium district on the planet. And at their flagship Key Lake project, drilling has already hit high-grade uranium right near the surface, but the team truly believes the real prize lies deep underground. So using a playbook based on the decade's biggest discoveries, they're hunting the massive source below. So let's talk about the Athabasca Basin. It's home to multi-billion-dollar names like NextGen Energy and Denison Mines. The Athabasca Basin has delivered over 20% of the world's uranium discoveries, with an estimated $200 to $300 billion worth of uranium identified in the ground, and yet Kirkstone is still sitting at a market cap below $12 million. That's an enormous disconnect between what's found in this district and how some companies are valued today. On January 14th, the U.S. administration reinforced their commitment to domestic energy security, invoking Section 232 via an executive order. It's a formal declaration of resource independence. It's a mandate. Energy security is now national security, and the U.S. government is deploying its full fiscal and regulatory tools to secure the nuclear fuel cycle in North America. Kirkstone Metals is strategically positioned to capitalize on this shift. Now, uranium prices have surged, and some analysts project prices could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. Federal momentum has already begun to translate into dollars on the ground, including billions in planned funding for domestic uranium enrichment capacity. The sector is entering one of its most active drilling seasons in years, and with its flagship drill program approved, Kirkstone has exploration underway, and they're advancing with a focus on execution. Some companies operating in the district are valued at over $10 billion, and with the U.S. pushing for domestic uranium, Kirkstone could potentially become a leading beneficiary of the reshoring mandate. So if you want to learn more about this critical mineral story and about a team that has delivered big results in the past, check out the link in the description. And a very special thanks to Kirkstone Metals for making today's video possible. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I am just making sure I've got everything together. Judy the Lady Pug says, I love to make it here on time for the village people. Well, Judy, I'm glad that you have fun with the introduction, just as much fun as I do as well. All right, now I've seen people asking me to bring back Altered State in the chat. And you guys, all I can say is that Altered State was a special moment in time, and it was only possible because it was me and Brad. And without Brad, I can't do Altered State. I personally would not feel the same about doing a show called Altered State with somebody who wasn't Brad. So doesn't mean that Brad and I aren't going to work together on other stuff in the future. But right now, it's just, you know, I got too much other stuff going on. To be frank, having Altered State off of my plate on Wednesday nights has afforded me precious, necessary time in my personal life, which has allowed me to focus on other things. So I will not be bringing back Altered State. I will not be bringing back a show in the Wednesday time slot, at least not right now. It has to be the right show. It doesn't make any sense for me to just replace a time slot so that I can replace a time slot. It would have to be something that would, at the very least, live up to the experience that I had with Altered State. So I will be focusing on my program and, of course, Monday nights with John on Baseless Conspiracies, which I don't know if everybody realizes this, but the work that I do on Baseless Conspiracies is a lot. It is quite a bit that I have to do to prepare for that show every single week. And it's also a lot to do these shows here every single day for you guys as well. So, you know, it is what it is. And at some point, I am going to need to take Lisa on a honeymoon. And so I hope that everybody here understands when we're going to be gone for a week or two. Because, first of all, I've never had the chance to do something like that. And of course, I'm just waiting for the opportunity to do that with my wife. Principled Enigma says, I'm about 2/3 of the way through the program you did Sunday. It's a knockout. Thank you. Awesome. I think my program I did on Sunday. Oh, you're talking about my video game stream. Cool. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. All right. Now, let's get started here. So, first of all, the situation in the UK, in both, the UK as a whole, but Ireland specifically, is definitely continuing to ramp up. Here, you can see in this security camera footage, a Irish patriot is firebombing the home of a Muslim imam. I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume off because there's no need to keep that on. Here he is setting the flammable material, and then looks like he's throwing a brick through the window, and then continuing the fire inside. And that is essentially where it ends. Don't know how it turned out for the rest of that home, but probably not so good. Here we have more video from Belfast where the homes of migrants are being firebombed again all over the place.
Oh, shit. Down here, guys, because... Whoa. Oh, fuck.
There are also videos emerging from all over Ireland and Scotland, which show migrants putting their belongings into cars and getting the hell out of Dodge as quickly as they possibly can. Omazon, thank you so much for the raid over there on Pilled. Appreciate you, homie. Thank you also to AOB22. So The mullet is out. What does Lisa think about the fro? Elisa has not seen the fro yet. I only just, well, I don't know if she was there for the GART stream. I don't think she was because I forgot to send her the link. But let me see. I will let me have somebody send me the soft disclosure ad so you guys can see that. Can you send me the new soft disclosure ad? If I can get Jessica to send that to me, then I will play it for you guys because it's another banger. All right. Now, here is an interview with a frustrated woman local from Belfast, and she's talking about her experience with immigration there in Northern Ireland, the way it's kind of put strain on all the people and the services, and she also, of course, believes that politicians are simply not listening to her. Her experience is that she wants these people to go, and that appears to be the sentiment that the majority of Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland have, as well as the rest of the UK.
I don't want them in my country anymore.
What's the general mood in the city?
It's very eerie. It's like a ticking time bomb. It's like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
Do you think this is going to last, or is it going to...
Yeah, I think it is going to last, yeah. I hope it lasts. I hope it does.
Yeah.
We don't give up this time. Stormont or over in Westminster do not represent us. They don't listen to us. But he was living in assisted living where our elderly should be. So why are they getting housed over? We have our homeless in the towns in Belfast city centre. Government aren't looking after them, so they're not looking after us. Our children's school places are being taken away. We can't get hospital appointments. I know that. My daughter waited 10 years on a hospital appointment to be diagnosed. So look, I never would have thought I would ever say that I don't want them in my country. I don't want them in my country anymore. My country's been through enough. We have murdered each other for years. We're trying to come together, and I think this is what's going to unite us. I hope it's going to unite both sides and bring us all together. Peaceful, that's all we want. We've been through our troubles and we're getting bossed in more. They have no loyalty to us, and when crunch comes to crunch, they're going to side with their own countries, and we have to stick together and side with each other here in Ireland. It has to be.
10 years to wait for a hospital appointment. Does anybody think that the migrants they're allowing coming into these countries are being forced to wait 10 years for a hospital appointment? I think not. And I think that it's quite clear that people from other countries are being given preferential treatment over and above what the natives of these countries are given. And she said it herself. She wasn't even a person who was adverse to these people coming in the first place. But after everything they've experienced in the UK and across Europe, people are done. People have had enough. And the people who are coming do not integrate into the society. They do not perceive themselves to be Britons or to be Irish or to be Scottish. They perceive themselves as separate, moving in and taking possession of the land on which they are welcomed. So it is inevitable what we're seeing right now. All right, now let me go ahead and pull up the new soft disclosure ad. Hang on just a second. We're going to go to this view right here. And let me throw it in right here. Okay. Hopefully you guys like this one. Oh, shoot. I need to convert this because otherwise it's going to stutter, and I don't want that. Okay, so we're going to go to my desktop, the Juneteenth ad. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. Okay, and let me go. I'll save it to right here into the commercials folder. Okay, choose and start. All right, give it like 10 seconds and it will be done. Okay, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and done. Okay, cool. Here we go. And, okay. Now let me make sure that the audio is turned on for this. Okay. Okay, you can hear the audio for that. Okay, good. All right, here we go.
He changed his shirt 3 times before he left. Tried on a smile that didn't
Everybody
fit
saves.
quiet.
Everybody.
Else like they
Even
knew.
me?
Especially you.
You mean I just have to use a promo code to get the discount?
BB truly is an idiot.
He had to earn it anyway.
Oh, shoot. Hold on. The audio is out of sync. That's crazy. Hold on. I need to do this correctly. Otherwise, it's going to bug the shit out of me. We got to fix that. Okay. Remove. And, okay. Hold on. Hold for processing one more time, guys. I'm sorry. I should have. I meant to do this earlier, but because I had to go straight from the GART call to the show with Adel, I didn't do it. Okay.
He changed his shirt 3 times before he left. Tried on a smile that didn't
Everybody
fit
saves.
quiet. Watched
Everybody.
everybody else like they
Even
knew.
me?
Especially you.
You mean I just have to use a promo code to get the discount?
BB truly is an idiot.
He had to earn it anyway. Come as you are. That's who we're waiting for. You don't need a different face walking through that door. Come as you are. You are not from the start. Soft disclosures for
Hi, fellas. What year is it?
soft disclosures for everybody.
Oh my god. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Oh, kid and play, Zach. So oh my god. Okay, hold on. I got another good one. I got another good one for you, which you're probably going to appreciate. So, I made the image of myself as a 1990s like b-boy hip hop guy, and I sent that to Green Star for him to use. But I also made an alternate version of it. I think maybe he thought that it was too on point to use for a Juneteenth ad. But I got to show you guys because I know you'll appreciate it. Okay, just don't tell anybody outside of the show here, okay? Oh God. Oh God. Hold on, I'm searching for the right sound effect here. Where is it? Where is it? Oh no. Oh no. Where is it? Where is it? Here we go.
I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all. I'm blickety black, blacker than black, black, I'm blacker than black, yo, because I'm black and I'm black. Yo, I'm black and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blickety black, 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 I'm black, 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 y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, cause I'm black.
Grok is the one who gave me the shirt that says Jungle Brothers. I did not do that. So that was Grok. I'm just going to go ahead and blame Grok for that. I need to animate that still image so that I'm like breakdancing during that so that I can make that as like an interlude in the show or something like that. Oh my God, that is so great. I'm transracial, guys. I identify. Yeah, that was CB4. That was definitely CB4. Murph Hazar, thank you very much for the can over on Pilled. Good Dog 45, thank you for the can as well. And then also over on Pilled, AOC dropped a cookie and says, DC Panic needs our help. Please share this link. Okay, we will definitely share this link. What's going on with DC Panic? Let me get this pulled up and we can check this out, you guys. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead. Okay, support for my double lung transplant. Oh, no, DC Panic's got to get a double lung transplant. Bro, hold on. We're going to read through this, and we're definitely going to be praying for you, bro. Okay, he only needs $4,500, and he's raised $50 so far. Anons and Patriots, I've been here since day one, lurking, researching, and trusting the plan right alongside you. After 7 years on oxygen, I'm now facing a double lung transplant. I want to make it through this to see the end of this battle and celebrate that win with all of you when we do win. The journey has been tough, and the challenges keep coming. Medical bills, food, gas, caretakers, and everything else is piling up fast. The stress of these expenses is overwhelming, and I need your help to get through this. Your support will help me cover the cost of my medical care, daily living, and extra help I need during recovery. Every dollar will go directly toward making sure that I have what I need to survive and heal so I can keep fighting alongside you all. I'm asking my fellow digital soldiers to step up and help one of our own. If you can contribute to share this, I'd be forever grateful. Your kindness and generosity mean the world to me, and together we can make a difference. Where we go one, we go all. So I will, after the end of the show, I will be giving a donation here, but I'll also share it out there on X as well. And, man, I'll be praying for you, brother. Absolutely. I do not wish a double lung transplant on anybody. I've known people who have had to go through that, and it's a tough road. All right. Now, I'm sure you guys remember Vance Belter. Vance Belter was the would-be Democrat assassin and allegedly hired by Tim Walz to take out a couple of Minnesota politicians. He had, of course, committed murder, attempted murder, also shot and wounded a dog. The dog had to be put down as a result. And then he was caught after a brief chase, running away from the police. Vance Belter seems to be some type of undercover operative, black ops kind of guy. He was operating all around the world in some really interesting places. And of course, he also wrote a letter to Kash Patel stating what I just said at the opening here, that Tim Walz had specifically hired him to commit these murders. Well, now, after Vance Belter has kind of been MIA for some time, I was really hoping we would get some disclosure as a result of this. He was charged, of course, with the murder of Minnesota House Democrat, and then her husband, Melissa Horton was her name. Melissa Horton is also interesting because she was the deciding vote in stopping illegal aliens from getting free medical care in the state of Minnesota. So there could have been a whole lot of people who wanted her dead. But there was also the non-fatal shooting of the state senator and his wife. Belter was charged in those murders. He was also charged with attempted murder, and he has now pled guilty to those murders and admitted what he did in court. However, the initial narrative of being hired by Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, had played no part in the public plea deal that he took anyways. But as a result of that plea deal, he is going to avoid the death penalty. Personally, I never really understood people making plea deals to avoid the death penalty. Like, I would rather be put to death and spend the rest of my life in prison. That's just me. But why would you want to live in an environment like that? Also, if I was guilty of having committed murder, and maybe, it's like my inherent morality. If I had murdered people, I don't think I would want to continue to live. Maybe he's trying to avoid ultimate judgment and damnation by staying alive longer than he needs to. But his defense attorney described in detail the events that took place in the early morning hours of June 14th of last year. And he asked Belter about his actions. Belter answered yes to all of the questions. He came to the victims' homes disguised as a police officer. He was driving a fake squad car because he owned a security company. In the course of that shooting spree, he pressed a gun to Melissa Horton's head and fired. This is also where he shot the golden retriever that the Hortons owned. that golden retriever unfortunately had to be put down afterwards. Now, as part of the plea agreement, Belter is facing 2 life terms plus 40 years. He will not be getting out, but after he pleads guilty, I would imagine he's going to be free to talk to the press or anybody else that might listen. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but I have a friend, Shane, who is a legislator in Minnesota, and he said that, he's friends with the sheriff because that's the place in which he lives. He's friends with the sheriff that was holding on to Vance Belter after he was captured. And Vance was unusual in that he was sitting in his jail cell for hours upon hours, waiting for authorities to come in and speak with him. Is basically just staring at the camera inside the cell, and he didn't blink once for like an 8-hour period. That is not normal. However, it may indicate that Vance Belter is some type of a mind control asset, an MK Ultra operative. That's what I've always thought. I would love to have an opportunity to speak with Vance Belter about this after he is sentenced to whatever his ultimate dispensation is. And obviously, I'll let you guys know about it if that happens. Thank you so much to Jim. Okay, sorry, we have several more. Will to push forward, sarcasm, satire. I have a theory on what is causing these fires. It might be spontaneous combustion. And then also Jim Kyle Zach. I watched an episode of Tracker. It was about DARPA, MK Ultra, and remote viewing. What are they trying to tell us? Well, I think they're probably, I haven't seen Tracker, so I don't know. Never heard of it, but I mean, I think that when these things pop up in popular culture, I mean, it's like people already know about these things. And if they're talking about it, then that means that it's okay for them to talk about it because people have already learned the truth about them. If you wouldn't mind, maybe give me a little bit more information. I would be interested to see that particular episode. Principled Enigma says, enough about my cheap comments. I love what you do, bro. Thank you. Your audience consider this a challenge. Oh, and you had also said that you were talking about the CIA gold heist rocking the agency. That was the video. Okay. So yeah, I was confused because that came out on Saturday and then my video game stream was on Sunday. Neither here nor there. You saw the show. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, there was a great conversation with Josh. Denise Ann also says, the kid in play image of you at the end was the icing on the cake. It truly was. I loved that. And then Surter says, flat top fade Zach. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Yes, that is good. Salbish says, Zach, you are such a treasure. I love your laugh. Thank you so much, Salbish. And thank you for matching that donation from Principled Enigma. And then Bowler Jack Bryan, thank you for the $50 rant, sir. Here is to your breakdancing lessons. Thank you. I actually have another image of me breakdancing in New York City, which I will show you guys tomorrow. And then Principled Enigma says, Zach, considered that most of the New Testament was written by people that were in prison. Well, you're absolutely correct. I had never thought about it that way. Yeah, but for some reason, I don't picture Vance Belter as writing a new book of the Bible. But, it is what it is. Okay, so moving on past Vance Belter. President Trump in the Oval Office yesterday had given us a very interesting clue as to where we're going next with regard to trade deals. Now, trade has been a very important underpinning for the second administration, as it was for the first administration. In that very first term, he's the one who implemented the trade deal between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. That was the what did they call it? The UMEX deal or something like that. I don't know. The North American trade deal, whatever it might be. Anyways, now that deal is set to expire in 2036 if all three countries don't renew it on July 1st. So essentially, it's set to expire on July 1st. If we don't renew it, then this North American free trade agreement between our three countries is not going to mean much of anything. And it will also affect hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Canadian jobs. And then also it will heavily impact Mexico as well. Now, as we've seen President Trump do on many occasions, he loves to use the threat of the global financial markets to force the movement of various players, whether it's Canada giving the United States something that we require or that we are asking for, or Mexico to address some specific problem, like, say, the cartels or the influx of Mexican and South American and Central American migrants from across the southern border. But President Trump has now said that he may just let this trade deal expire, and then basically when it's over, all of those sort of blowbacks that I mentioned are going to hit not going to hit the United States. They'll primarily hit Canada and Mexico. But the president said he's not looking to renew this three-way agreement, and he highlighted that it served its purpose by replacing NAFTA, because NAFTA was the worst trade deal we'd ever seen. I don't know that I'm going to redo it, he said, because to be honest with you, we don't need anything Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they need everything that we have, and they have to treat us better. As I'm sure many of you have noticed, there has been a contentious relationship between Carney and Trump. Carney has kind of gone back and forth on, at bowing at the feet of the United States and Mexico, and then talking with a lot of bravado about, standing up to Trump and the United States, and, you need to do for us, blah, blah, blah. I got a lot of respect for the Canadian patriots, but the truth of the matter is we don't need to do much of anything that the Canadian government would like us to do. And the same is true for Mexico. Mexico at this point is a narco state. Mexico seems to be controlled by the cartels, and the politicians are all corrupt. The people who live there are unfortunately living in a very untenable situation. If you're an American and you go to certain places, it's almost assured that you're going to get kidnapped and maybe beheaded before your family has the opportunity to pay a ransom to have you set free. And even if you are paid that ransom, there's still a very good likelihood that you're going to get beheaded anyways. So I wouldn't want to go to Mexico. He said, I don't think I'm going to redo it. With Mexico and Canada, we have trade deficits. We should have surpluses with them. We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. Now, this has already had an impact on the rhetoric coming out of Mark Carney in Canada. He is completely, once again, bending over backwards to get back into the good graces of the United States so that President Trump will re-sign this trade agreement. And I would imagine that as soon as the agreement is signed, Canada will go back to being just as defiant about the United States and, of course, doing whatever they can to subvert the America First agenda. Claudia Sheinbaum is already in an untenable situation. She's been forced to allow the United States and special forces to come in and take out cartel bosses. She's also been forced to hand over cartel bosses. I would have hoped that at this point we would have seen movement concerning information coming from those cartel bosses for the arrest of other drug suspects in Mexico, but more importantly, going after corrupt politicians here in the United States that have been getting paid off by those cartels, but we haven't seen any of that yet. Now, this comment is coming at the time when both Canada is imploring the U.S. and Mexico to renew the deal, because if we don't, then Canada is kind of left in an island. If the three countries do not renew the agreement, it would be in effect for another 16 years, but then it would be up for review in 2032. Now, if the U.S. or Mexico declines to renew that agreement at that time, it will ultimately expire in 2036, and then it'll be subject to yearly reviews until then. So the next round of negotiations between our three countries is expected to be taking place in Washington either next week on the 16th or the 17th. And there's going to be a focus on agriculture. And this is one of the places that President Trump likes to be. He likes to be in a position of power, of deal-making authority over the individuals or the entities that he would like to push in the direction that he wants them to go. This is the art of the deal. This is what President Trump gets juiced on, and I personally love to see it. All right, thank you very much to CK Felt. Thank you very much. He says, listening while I get to relax and enjoy a pedicure. Here's a tip for you, too. Thank you for all you do. Enjoy that pedicure, my friend. Appreciate you. Principled Enigma, thank you for another very generous $50 donation. Add this to your donation to the guy who needs the replacement lungs. Happy to... Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, and I certainly will. Okay, now, thank you also to 123SKG for the cookie. we had a very, very notable announcement coming from the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice earlier today concerning the rescue of children who have been sex trafficked. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, soon to be actual Attorney General Todd Blanche, discussed the identification of nearly 16,000 individuals who sponsored at least 3 unaccompanied migrant children, which obviously seems to be a little bit suspicious, especially when some of them happen to be sex offenders.
Open borders. Today we are announcing the indictments of 3 individuals: Maritza Kawik-Koch, her brother, Carlos Agustin Kawik-Koch, and Gladys Marina Call-Chen. This was out of the Northern District of Ohio. All 3 are illegal aliens from Guatemala who allegedly took part in a wide-ranging conspiracy to smuggle more than a dozen children into the United States by scamming the system and exploiting the loopholes created by the last administration. This is one example, one indictment, but it is not unique. There are over 15,500 super sponsor cases that we have identified along with DHS. And again, these super sponsor cases are when somebody sponsors more than 3 children, unrelated, and they're unaccompanied minors that come in the United States. I also open border.
Okay, so obviously there's a pattern that has emerged. People using and gaming the system to get these children into the United States, and then, of course, sex trafficking them. Here is a larger portion of that statement.
So for years, open border policies threatened the security of our nation and put countless lives at risk. Under President Trump's leadership, the Department of Justice is working alongside HHS and DHS to secure the border and protect American communities. There's a lot of ways that we do this. It includes punishing those who exploited the system and smuggled unaccompanied children across the border during the prior administration. More than 475,000 unaccompanied children entered the United States during the Biden administration. 475,000.
That's about 175,000 more than we had previously been told. I believe it was around 300,000 before, but nearly 500,000, 500,000. Jeez, oh, Pete.
Over 300,000 cannot be accounted for at the
Maybe that's where I'm getting the 300,000. 300,000 that were just straight up missing.
End of 2024. The way that this happened was typically because the criminals calling themselves sponsors trafficked these children to the border, usually committing fraud to do so, and oftentimes the children were abused, assaulted, and certainly exploited. In some cases, individuals would sponsor multiple children, which required them to lie to government personnel and on government forms, claiming they were close relatives when in fact they were not. They would use fake or stolen identities and make other false claims during the application process in order to obtain custody of the children. I think I'm stating the obvious, that when government fails to protect our borders, it is the most vulnerable who suffer. And this department and this administration has zero tolerance for unlawful activity and is committed to protecting children who suffered the consequences of open borders. Today we are announcing the indictments of 3 individuals: Maritza Kawik-Koch, her brother, Carlos Agustin Kawik-Koch, and Gladys Marina Call-Chen. This was out of the Northern District of Ohio. 1,500 super sponsor cases that we have identified along with DHS. And again, these super sponsor cases are when somebody sponsors more than 3 children, unrelated, and they're unaccompanied minors that come in the United States. I also want to announce today, from the same district in Ohio, the Northern District, the sentencing of another criminal illegal alien who was convicted, also from Guatemala. He was a 27-year-old man who came to the United States, smuggled in a 14-year-old child by submitting false paperwork and lying on the forms, claiming to be her brother, proceeded to sexually assault this young woman. And these two cases, while only two, help explain how what was going on is really the stuff of nightmares. Now, these charges brought by the Department of Justice show the important partnership between HHS and DHS and with the Department of Justice. All of us are going after those who illegally brought children to this country.
Amen. You know, this is simply behavior that did not occur under the last administration, or I haven't seen occurring in any regular sense under any other administration. Only President Trump's administrations have intentionally and routinely sought to punish those who are victimizing children in this international pipeline of child trafficking. And for all of the people who for years said that we were crazy, that we were conspiracy theorists, that this stuff just wasn't happening, the blood and the trauma of each and every one of those kids is on your hands. It's your fault that this was never addressed. And you have to ask yourself, why would they be so hell-bent on trying to convince us that this wasn't a real phenomenon, unless perhaps they themselves were also participating in this sort of trash? Now, take a listen to this, because a talking head from the mainstream media goes after Todd Blanche and asks for evidence that the last administration was encouraging this behavior. Like, bitch, please.
Encouraged, though, is quite a charge. I mean, what evidence do you have of that?
What evidence of what?
To say that it was encouraged, this behavior, is quite a charge.
Well, you can insert whatever word you want. I said encourage. If you know there's a problem and you're in a position of leadership to stop it and you don't stop it, what word should I use? I mean, I use the word encouraged. If it isn't as if this was a single-day problem. You have a situation that happened over a number of years. They knew it was happening. It was brought to their attention it was happening, and they didn't do anything to stop it. As a matter of fact, when you look at the end of 2024, and there were 300,000, like, you just think in your mind that number that number of young children, and then we had no idea where they were in this country. I mean, that's I continue to use the words encourage.
So, of course, this woman, I don't know who she is, but it's the same typical tired attempt to discredit a story because Todd Blanche isn't showing up a picture of a child being raped by a migrant while an official from the Biden administration looks on with a clipboard with an approving smile, or because there isn't a video of an election official in California specifically explaining how they are planning to steal an election. Like, I'm sorry, this is the real world, and this is simply not the way that cases are oftentimes prosecuted. There is an investigation that's done, and oftentimes you're going to see a pattern of behavior. I don't know what else you would call it when you look at the actions of the last administration and you understand that they were knowingly putting children into the homes of registered sex offenders. What else can you call it other than encouraging the abuse of children to be taking place? I don't know what else you would call it. You know, I mean, like, if you live in Washington, D.C., or you live in Chicago, and you leave your car keys on the dashboard of your car, and then you don't lock it, and you go inside in the morning when your car is gone, do you think it's fair to say that you encouraged your car to be stolen? You certainly didn't do anything to stop it. And I think that those two things are tantamount to, you know, being equal. So whoever this woman is, like, she can F all the way off. Now, here is a clip from Mark Wayne Mullen at the same time discussing the children who have been found.
And you start hearing the absolute horrific things that took place underneath the Biden administration, under true neglect at best and criminal at worst, to allow 450,000 kids to go missing throughout this country. President Trump has made it a point to go find these kids. And because of our partnership with HHS and DOJ, Department of Homeland Security, truly using the best of the best, which the Democrats sometimes want to demonize, because a lot of times this is ICE, this is HSI, this is CBP. These individuals that the Democrats seem to want to defund, but because of President Trump, we finally funded them for 3 years. We're able to push and go find these kids. We found 146,000 kids so far. 146,000 kids. We still have nearly 300,000 missing. We're investigating reports to where some of these kids claim that they were raped 600 to 700 times. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have kids, if you don't have kids. I don't care if you're a liberal, you're independent, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican. If you can't stand for law enforcement to go find these kids, who are you?
All right, I'm seeing somebody over on Getter
great again.
say that my audio is not coming through. Hang on just a second. Let me try to fix something on StreamYard and see if that does it. Because the audio... This is so annoying. Okay. So the audio should work now over on StreamYard. Excuse me, over on Getter. Let me just try this again.
And you start hearing the absolute horrific things that took place underneath the Biden administration. Under true...
Okay, somebody says it is working now. Okay, good, good. All right, so yeah, you know, this is absolutely repugnant. And the fact that all of those kids were allowed to be trafficked, to be abused, that their concerns when they reached out to the past administration were just completely ignored. You can't call it anything else other than permission. Institutionalized child trafficking. And this is one of the most disturbing realizations that you can come to when you're having your awakening journey, to realize that an economy of scale has been developed around the victimization of children all around the world. I don't think that there is a nation on planet Earth that isn't in one way or another participating in this, that the network doesn't touch one of those places, except maybe in Russia right now. I need to say thank you very much to B4U2C, gifted 5 subscriptions. Thank you so much, and congratulations to those of you who won those subscriptions. Appreciate you. Lee Walden says, a special place in hell for these monsters. We have the millstones at the ready. Also, None Report. Thank you to the None Report for the raid over on Rumble. And thank you to Principal Enigma one more time, who says it takes a special kind of person to do what Todd Blanche does, while at the same time managing his internal reaction to the hideous nature of what he has to deal with. That's focus with blinders on. Yeah, I think Todd Blanche is perfect for that job. And I'm very happy that President Trump has him there to address the tremendous horrors that we have to deal with, because it's only going to get worse before it gets better. All right. Now, before we continue with the next portion of the program, I do have a very quick message. Whoa. Didn't mean to do that. All right, parents, grandparents, if you're out there listening, you guys, I have a quick message. Take a listen to this. America is hitting up on a very important milestone, our 250th birthday, 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and, of course, the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever seen. It's not perfect, but it's the only country we've got, and it's the best one in the world. It's the perfect moment as a result of this to help your children or your grandchildren understand really why this country matters. What is it about America that's worth preserving? Well, luckily, there's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it is honestly a great way to introduce kids to how this nation began, who those founding fathers were, what it was they risked, why the ideas they fought for are still relevant today, and why we need to fight for them. This guide is going to send those kids back to the very moment they signed that Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. It's going to break it all down in a very entertaining way, something that they can understand and enjoy. It's not going to water it down, but it's not going to turn it into boring schoolwork. So if you care about raising children who know where this country came from and why it's worth keeping, then this is something you're going to want to grab. But the best part is that it's completely free. You just need to pay $2 for shipping and handling. So to pick this up, head on over to freeusabirthday.com. That is freeusabirthday.com, and the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is yours today. Now you can go here to the QR code on screen and use that as well. Scan that. It'll take you right there because America's story matters, so we need to make sure that the next generation understands it. Thank you very much to Rumble. Okay. And all right, so Pentagon operations were temporarily disrupted earlier today when a shelter-in-place order was put in. The Pentagon was put onto lockdown because there was a hazardous material incident, which means that several floors were evacuated. There was a little bit of panic. There was a statement from the Pentagon spokesperson, Sean Parnell. He said the Pentagon has sophisticated systems to ensure the safety of the building and its occupants. Those systems have detected an air quality issue, necessitating precautionary measures until we determine its significance. The department is executing standard protection protocols, including a shelter-in-place order for the affected area. Response teams are in place and ready to support building occupants. Now, turns out it was due to a faulty sensor. The Arlington Fire Department is right there at the Pentagon. They assisted the hazmat team. They came inside and found that one of the sensors had turned on to be some type of a result of somebody having a panic attack, basically. So they had evacuated multiple floors and corridors inside the Pentagon, locked everything down, and it turns out that it was really nothing. But obviously, they are aware that anything could happen at any time in a building like the Pentagon, and so they need to be ready for it. Now, yesterday, everybody was preparing for holy hell to rain down on Iran. President Trump has officially canceled those planned strikes, and he had initially renewed these strikes because of the downing of that Apache helicopter, and it was planning to get a lot worse. So the war was in a nominal ceasefire for several weeks, and it looked like Iran was probably going to be ultimately obliterated if President Trump had gone through with his plans. Now, based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level of Iranian leadership and approved, I have, as President of the United States of America, canceled the scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran this evening. Discussions and final points have been in both concept and great detail approved by all parties involved, including the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, and others. The naval blockade will remain in full force and effect until the transaction is finalized, time and place of the signing to be announced shortly. So the terms of the agreement have not been fully released to the public, but President Trump, referencing a signing, suggests that both governments may finalize a permanent end to the war. And we do have a comment that was made from President Trump in the early morning hours where he says that agreement means that the Iran war is settled. Now, if that means the Iran war is settled like we were told it was settled previously, it might mean that it's not settled at all. However, President Trump seems to be confident in this statement that he makes here. Let's take a listen.
Big day. I know you'll never be satisfied, but that's okay. That doesn't bother me at all. We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents, which should get done over the next few days. Probably have a signing maybe in Europe, and it's a great thing. Stock market's up 1,000 points. That means they like the deal. See, that means they like. If the market goes down, that means they don't like the deal. But it's been up. Oil's dropped. Oil will start coming down to, I think, even lower than it was before. I said I was in Iowa. It was $1.85 a gallon. Big day.
All right, so President Trump has said that the Ayatollah's son, I don't really know what to call him, or perhaps the current supreme leader of Iran, has agreed to whatever negotiation the United States and Iran has decided was going to be necessary to end the war. President Trump also said that he has made the agreement that, of course, there will be no nuclear weapons. It's been said before that all of that nuclear material would be handed over to the United States. Of course, everything is subject to the ultimate approval of the negotiations as they move forward. I would sincerely hope that this is going to be it, and hopefully we can just bring this whole thing to a close and bring down gas prices, and also, of course, more importantly, bring peace to the region, helping the Iranian people to engage in a more open and honest world. You know, I mean, like, everybody can be friends and we can just get over our differences and stop bombing each other, and then everybody will be friends. The golden age, the peace that President Trump has promised us, we can finally have it. All right. Now, let's see. Limited access on Pilled. Thank you for the phone. He says, if you would be so kind, one of our friends, Old Salty Fart, also needs some help with a much-needed surgery. If folks can please help our friend Wade. And there is a link to a Give, Send, Go. I'll go ahead and pull that up, and then I will share that as well. Okay, and let's see. I need help getting surgery, he says. I will start this as I hate asking anyone for anything. I'm not a lazy person who wanted to be where I am right now, but unfortunately I am. I had a orchiectomy surgery August 1st, 2005. I was off work until October 30th. Even though I pled with the surgeon for more time, he did a return to work order with no restrictions. I had a long-term and short-term disability plan through work, and at the time, I was about to switch to long-term. But as it turns out, when the doctor puts a no restrictions on his return to work order, it's done for the employer. But for me, returning to work with a plum-sized lump in my right groin area where they removed my testicle in blue jeans and steel-toed boots, my work uniform, wasn't going to happen, but I tried. I was hurting in that uniform, and I knew at that point I wasn't going to hurt to myself to prove to my doctors and employer I wasn't ready to return to work. I worked for a cemetery. I did a lot of heavy lifting, so I told my boss I can't do this anymore and walked out. He didn't even try to stop me. I was a loyal employee that was there for whatever was needed, a 6-year loyal employee. Now I'm fighting depression and being bedridden with pain medication and a lack of motivation. I can't stand for long periods without pain. Even lying in bed is painful. I will gracious and thankful to everyone for this because I'm at a dead end. I've tried everything else. Okay, I will go ahead and share this one as well. And at the very least, if you guys could please keep him in your prayers, that would also help. Okay, and there we go. Okay. Now, moving on to the next story, which is another announcement from President Trump. Earlier today, he also announced his ultimate nomination for the office of the Director of National Intelligence, who it turns out is going to be Jay Clayton. Now, Clayton is the former SEC chairman and the current U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Now, federal housing regulator Bill Pulte is, of course, the current acting director of national intelligence. He begins that work on June 19th, and he will effectively remain in that position throughout the last of Tulsi Gabbard's tenure, and then he will immediately take over for her when she leaves on June 30th. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, I am pleased to announce the nomination of very highly respected Jay Clayton, former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the former head of Sullivan and Cromwell. That's interesting. Sullivan and Cromwell were a law firm that was instrumental in the creation of the Central Intelligence Agency, one of the most prominent and successful law firms anywhere in the world, and the current United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York to be the next Director of National Intelligence and, importantly, to serve in my cabinet. Few people anywhere in the legal community are respected at the level of Jay. I encourage the United States to confirm Jay as soon as possible. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, Jay Clayton, that is an interesting pick because he wasn't on anybody's radar. And theoretically, he doesn't have any intelligence community experience either. So it may have something to do with his employment at Sullivan and Cromwell, because, of course, most people aren't going to know that. But I would imagine people in the government would know that. And because he's a lawyer and perhaps having some tenuous connection, maybe that will be enough to get him through. I haven't seen the comments from anybody yet on the Senate to suggest that they're going to try to stand in the way of him becoming the Director of National Intelligence. But Senate Majority John Thune praised Clayton and said he will try to get him confirmed as quickly as possible. Thune cautioned that Clayton probably won't get confirmed before June 19th, which means that, of course, we're going to have Bill Pulte as acting director. Thune says Clayton has a great reputation as being an incredibly competent manager, a very qualified professional with a great skill set. Says he'll try to get him nominated as soon as possible. Now, I do, however, have a short interview that Clayton did on CNBC, and in this interview, he talks about the California fraud and rigged elections. So there may be other reasons why President Trump chose Jay Clayton for this job.
Of what's happening in California right now?
No, I actually can't, which I think is the problem. You raised this about election integrity. Which I think is the point.
That's what I'm watching it, and are any of the things we're hearing about, like thousands of votes, all for the same person? Is any of that true, or is that just this sort of conspiracy? Like 100% for the socialist candidate versus the others? Is any of that true?
Look, we had a problem, a deep problem with voting in America. We had race-based discrimination around voting that was identified. We had the Voting Rights Act. It was all about access, making sure that people were not denied access. There was a second element to it, which was election integrity, making sure that once everybody has access, that their vote actually counts, that it's not being diluted by illegal voting or shenanigans and the like. I think we've done, a pretty darn good job on access. I don't hear anybody claiming that they don't have access to the ballot box. What we've done.
You hear politicians saying that it's Jim Crow disenfranchisement.
But no evidence, right? We have groups dedicated to making sure that people have access. Tons of money dedicated to it. Laws and laws that my office enforces, other offices enforce to make sure that people. On the integrity side, we're doing an absolutely terrible job. And the American people are right to question it. How come we can have an audit trail in every other aspect of our lives that's important? People cite getting on, planes and the like and things, but, in every company.
Here's the issue. California's election law allows ballots postmarked by election day to be counted and permit same-day registration. That means tabulation typically continues for weeks after the vote.
I think you go 30 days, isn't it?
Right.
But why is that law there? I get you.
That doesn't sound like fraud. That you can argue whether the law makes sense, but that doesn't sound like a fraudulent situation.
No, there's a great phrase: opportunity for fraud. Right. One of the things do in designing laws is reduce the opportunity for fraud without, in this case, reduce the opportunity for fraud while not adversely impacting access. And every time it happens, Jay,
it's like, okay, all these are coming in for the next 30 days. Oh, Democrats vote that way, so it just makes sense that it's 100% Democrat. That's where the opportunity comes from. So, yeah, you can have it. Why does it always go that way with the mail-in votes? Why is it always 100% Democrats are voting in the mail-in?
Or why can't you count them like they do in other jurisdictions on the same day as Election Day, or within a very reasonable
Well, if you mail them in on Election Day, they're not going to be there on Election Day.
Well,
opportunity.
I got stuff returned to me that I sent out for Christmas by like 2 months later that was coming back in.
Why we wait until Election Day for mail-in ballots, I don't really.
But those are questions with the law, and it doesn't suggest that there's necessarily fraud here. You can have cause for an investigation, but what the governor's office.
The vote totals that come in suggest there might be
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
It's what it does.
I'm not saying there's not fraud. I'm just saying there's not necessarily fraud there, and that's
what it is it makes the opportunity for fraud so much greater when that is not necessary. It is not necessary for ballot access. and it's not
Well,
necessarily.
one guy was up 8%, and now 3 days later, or whatever it's
Spencer.
been. Yeah, now he's down.
Yeah, well, and it makes you ask: is mail-in voting being used by one group and not another? Whether it's being used honestly or honestly and dishonestly is a question now everyone is asking, and it's a question that can be eliminated. Look at Florida. Everybody's comfortable that Florida delivers election results and that there's access to the voting booth in Florida. I think, Florida deserves a great deal of credit. Florida is a state that has many jurisdictions that lean right, many jurisdictions that lean left, and I think they all agree that as a state, they probably have the best election laws.
Andrew?
They do have the best election laws, but even then it's not perfect. But he's absolutely correct. He gets it, that the problem is the laws and the regulations are constructed such that fraud becomes possible. If you want to make sure that fraud isn't possible, if you want to make sure that the trust of the community exists, then you eliminate those options. It is completely unnecessary for people to come in and register on the day of an election, for people to be able to postmark a ballot on the day of an election, for ballots to take a month to arrive. And that right there is where we come to the next story in our series today about election integrity. Now, I mentioned this yesterday, that there was word coming down that President Trump was going to direct the post office to not deliver ballots that were in states where the federal government had not had the opportunity to determine that the voter rolls were clean. Now, CNN is actually the place who is reporting on this, and they seem to be just a little bit scared about what might take place. So state election officials could soon face a stark choice: hand over voter lists to the Trump administration or risk losing Postal Service delivery for mail-in ballots, which would effectively make it impossible for mail-in ballots to even be part of the system because, of course, you can no longer use the mail. This dilemma stems from the newly proposed USPS rules that seek to comply with an executive order President Trump signed in the spring to crack down on mail-in voting. If courts let the order stand, it would give the federal government an unprecedented role in elections, as if they don't already have unprecedented roles in the election. And it could put even more voter data in the hands of Trump officials searching for supposed election fraud. Good. That is exactly what we, the people, want. The proposed rules lay out new conditions that states would have to meet to send ballots through the mail, including giving the agency lists of all voters set to receive mail-in ballots. This is wonderful. So far, 23 Democrat-led states in the District of Columbia are suing. Of course they are, as are Democrat Party leaders and nonpartisan voter advocacy groups, but they're not really nonpartisan. We all know that. This is obviously going to be a high-stakes summer ruling, and I hope that this is pushed through the courts quickly. The Trump administration cleared the first initial legal hurdle last month. A federal judge in D.C., who is one overseeing this set of cases, declined to block the ruling from the Trump administration's executive order, which allows the post office to immediately begin implementing it. So effectively, this is happening right now. Democratic Party groups are asking an appeals court to speed up its review of that decision, and they warn that voters around the country could be disenfranchised in this year's midterm election if the proposal is not blocked. Now, I would argue that everybody who doesn't vote by mail is already being disenfranchised because the opportunity for fraud is such that dirty voter rolls not being cleaned or at least being scrubbed against dead voters, out-of-state voters, people who have moved, illegal aliens, those lists disenfranchise every single legal American who wishes to cast a ballot. In an interview with CNN, Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows, a Democrat who is part of this coalition that is suing the Trump administration, said if the courts rule on behalf of Trump and this executive order, then you will see a virtual elimination of mail-in voting unless that state supplies voter lists to the federal government. You guys, this is exactly what we want. This is the way. I am so excited. This March 2026 executive order is one of several moves Trump has made recently seeking federal control over elections and restricting mail-in voting. If we can't get rid of it, then we force them to do it properly. He has repeatedly cast mail-in ballots as a tool for his opponents for election cheating, despite no evidence of widespread voter fraud. And, of course, there we go. Back to it. On Capitol Hill, the SAVE Act, a Trump-backed bill requiring new citizenship verification measures to register to vote, has floundered in the Senate because they're a bunch of pussies. Courts have pushed back on other aggressive attempts by the administration to inject itself into the voting process, a job that the Constitution largely gives to the states. But now the executive order will give the USPS an unprecedented role in the midterm elections. They've already got an unprecedented role because they're the ones who are delivering these ballots. Not just delivering the ballots, but now policing who actually gets one. And the beauty of it is, they're not going to be disenfranchising somebody who doesn't deserve to be disenfranchised. If you're a dead person, you've got no right to vote. If you no longer live at that address, you've got no right to vote at that address. If your ballot is being delivered to a USPS mailbox or a UPS mailbox or a FedEx mailbox, you have no right to vote at that address. If your ballot is being delivered to an empty lot along with another 185 people, you've got no right to vote there. If the ballot is being sent to a homeless shelter without beds, you've got no right to vote there. There is nobody who is going to lose their right to vote that already should not be casting a ballot. The USPS Board of Governors' former vice chair, Anton Hajar, said if proper postage is paid on a mail piece, the USPS should deliver it. The proposed rule says it's not regulating elections, but that's what, in effect, it is doing. Well, it's also effectively doing that, but it doesn't say that on the paper. President Trump's executive order doesn't say anywhere that the USPS is going to be regulating elections. All it says is that don't deliver mail if you can't verify that somebody lives there. So in a statement, the White House said the entire Trump administration will continue lawfully enacting the agenda of the president that he was elected to enact, which includes the safety and security of American elections. The administration remains confident the executive order will be implemented by the November election, which was always the intent when it was signed. Now, while the language the Postal Service drafted still leaves states in charge of deciding which voters end up on the lists submitted to the agency, it tells USPS not to send ballots for states that don't follow the process. The state's mail balloting programs must meet other requirements in Trump's order for the USPS to deliver their ballots, potentially forcing some jurisdictions to completely redesign their mail voting materials. This would... Okay, now, Tobias Reed, the Secretary of State in Oregon, obviously a commie. This would deny eligible people the right to vote, full stop. This is not in the president's power. It's absolutely clear in the Constitution. States run elections. As the legal fight unfolds, Postal Service unions have communicated their concerns to USPS leadership about the order and how it puts mail carriers in the position of deciding whether to transmit certain ballots. I'll tell you how they could do it. I mean, the post office has a little scanner that they're supposed to use for a piece of mail like this. You scan that ballot on the outside, and if that barcode doesn't meet the requirements because it's not in the database, well, then you don't take it. Perhaps the postal worker would then be required to destroy that ballot. I like that as an idea. As we read this draft, if a state does not comply with it, if they don't provide the information or the right format, then the Postal Service is going to simply refuse all of those ballots or whatever election mail it is. And that is very, very concerning, said Brian Renfro, the president of the National Association of Letter Carriers. Now, Trump's order also instructs the DHS to build its own state-by-state citizenship list of eligible voters by pulling data from various federal agencies. They've already been doing this since the beginning. Fueling fears the administration could use the lists to pressure states to purge their voter rolls. Again, if those people are dead or they've moved or they're not legal, then yeah, those voter rolls should be purged. State election officials already have the ability to use the DHS immigrant record system to verify their rolls, and the program has come under fire for falsely identifying eligible voters as non-citizens. I don't know of a single case. Of course, I've only heard places like CNN say that it's happened. In court filings, the Trump administration has waffled on how DHS intends to carry out the plans for releasing state-by-state lists, but on Monday, the Justice Department and DHS is working on making citizenship lists available for states to access. DHS is also having preliminary conversations about the agency's sharing data, DOJ said Monday. The administration previously told the court that they were exploring whether the state voter data provided to USPS would be used to help monitor mail-in and absentee ballot flows, identify anomalies that may suggest voter fraud or misuse, and generate authorized investigative leads. Yes, please do that. A spokesperson for DHS said in a statement to CNN that it was lawfully implementing the president's executive order, and they were committed to restoring integrity to our election systems and ensuring that American citizens, and only American citizens, are electing American leaders. Of course, CNN is worried about whether or not this is even something they can do. Feasibility questions. There are major questions over the feasibility of the Postal Service's plan, including whether the already cash-strapped agency has the funding and wherewithal to execute such drastic steps on such a quick timeline. When they don't have the funding to do the declared mission, how's anybody reasonably expecting that they can expand that mission? Said Matt Crane, executive director of the Colorado County Clerks Association, which represents the local officials who run elections in the state. Focus on their day job and let us do ours. Well, you're already shit at your day job, Matt Crane. Under the proposed regulations, the Postal Service will need to design and launch a portal through which states could submit a list of their mail voters along with unique barcodes for each individual. The real problem is, to my knowledge, this portal doesn't exist yet, said Jeff Ellington, whose company, Runbeck Election Services, has been hired by Maricopa County, Arizona, and other large jurisdictions to print ballots and administer other aspects of mail-in voting. This might end up putting Runbeck Election Services out of business. The Trump administration has also told USPS there is money to support the internal implementation, though the specific stream of funding is unclear. Of course, why are they going to tell CNN or anybody else what they're planning to do, exactly how they're going to do it, before they actually do it? If they put all of the information out there, then it would be far easier to stymie it, stop it, before they even get it off the ground. Within the agency, the outsized impact the new system will have on smaller, rural communities has been a matter of discussion. They always care about rural communities when it comes down to something like this. Otherwise, they simply don't give a shit about the people who live in the country. In addition to the lists of eligible voters, the proposed regulations include new standards for ballot envelopes, including barcodes that would help keep track of ballots, all of which pose challenges for smaller election offices with limited budgets to revamp mail-in ballots. Tell you what, way we can do it really easily is you have a standard. The standard is decided upon by the federal government. The federal government enforces that standard, gives it out to election officials all around the country. They simply make the ballots and the ballot envelopes based upon that standard, and then there will be little to no confusion from here on out. And it will be very easy and simple to determine whether or not a ballot is fraudulent. Large counties and states where mail-in voting is prevalent, like Arizona and Colorado, are likely to already use mail ballots that are designed in accordance with the proposed regulations. Those design features have long been best practices for mail voting, said Tammy Patrick, Chief Programs Officer at Election Center, a nonprofit that serves elections offices across the country. You can also read perhaps help cheating. There are practical reasons why some jurisdictions haven't adopted this, she said. She pointed to both budgetary issues as well as state laws that stand in the way of ballot envelope designs that facilitate automated tracking. How jurisdictions organize and format their mail vote data varies from state to state, and within each state posing potential obstacles for how USPS will receive those lists. Across the states, it's been a challenge for local officials to make sure their data can be ingested and read by the states. And now we are asking all 50 states to have information that can be aligned for the Postal Service? My God, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. And I hope that they can't, to be perfectly honest with you. I hope that this effectively ends mail-in voting as it currently exists. Trump tried to assert more control over federal elections with this election order, executive order last year, but that has largely been blocked by judges who concluded he has no unilateral power to alter voting rules, and any such authority must come from Congress. Similar arguments are being made against the latest order. But last month, U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols declined to block the 2026 executive order, not because he found its directives lawful, but because he said there were unanswered questions about how the government would implement it, so it was too soon to intervene. Democrats are pushing the D.C. U.S. District Court of Appeals for a ruling this summer. Abolish the D.C. District Court and abolish the D.C. District Court of Appeals. If the order remains in force, millions of Americans' voters' sensitive personal data will be amassed into inaccurate and unlawful databases, and the USPS will engage in unprecedented interference with state mail voting programs, the Democrats wrote Monday in their court filing. It's so hilarious to me whenever they're like, we don't want the government to know who we are. The government already knows every single one of you, okay? They assign a social security number to you at birth based upon your name, your location of where you're actually born. That's the format of those social security numbers. So they already know who you are. It's just completely ridiculous that we can't entrust the United States government to just know what people live in the United States. Everybody knows that the reason they don't want that is because when they don't, once again, it's the opportunity for fraud. And the impression that most people have is that the system under which we are operating is fraudulent, it is fake, and it is gay. And so that's why it has to be fixed. Anyways, moving on from CNN, President Trump has another curveball that he's thrown. As we know, the $350 billion Pentagon reconciliation budget is set to be brought for a vote. And President Trump is now demanding that Congress also add to it the Save America Act, because for them to not fund the Pentagon budget, especially in the midst of a wartime scenario like what we have, that would be tantamount to every single member of Congress turning their backs on the armed forces, on every single man and woman in uniform. And if they have to pass the Pentagon reconciliation budget and they add the Save America Act, then we can effectively force that across the finish line with only a simple majority. That would be 50 U.S. senators from the Republican side and then one yes vote in terms of J.D. Vance. That would give us the 51 that we need. Let me say thank you to G. Fontez. A Brave browser update just fixed my Rumble problems, reverted back to default like background and expanding sidebar every time I change channels or tabs. So happy I don't need to replace RAM. Yeah, anytime you have something weird going on your computer, guys, make sure that the software you're using is the most recently released version of it. 9 times out of 10, that's what happens to me. Lee Walden says, I watched the Trump brief today. The fishermen were there for an executive order for relief on restrictions, and there was friends from Deadliest Catch and local fishermen here in Mass as a coastie. I'm proud. That's cool. Principal Enigma says, why does POTUS keep complimenting Thune? On another note, I guess we will now find out how politicized the USPS is. Well, we already know that they're basically run by Democrats. In this instance, I would suggest that President Trump is complimenting Thune because the addition of the Save America Act to the Pentagon reconciliation budget can only be done with the support of Senator John Thune. So if President Trump came out and said, John Thune is a weenie, he's weak, he doesn't do what I want him to do, he is against America, President Trump already supported candidates that have unseated people that John Thune was friends with. So there's animosity there. And John Thune is a typical Washington politician. His power and his worth derives from his position in the Senate. So without that, John Thune is nothing. And as unfortunate as it is for people out here who are not politicians, they just don't get oftentimes that President Trump's words are bargaining chips. And it's all part of the art of the deal. Everything that you see President Trump doing and everything that you hear him saying and all of the comments that he makes about Thune or anybody else is part of the art of the deal. President Trump is always making deals. He also says smaller jurisdiction also means that people have less distance to travel to get to the voting booth. Yeah, we need to have smaller and more local precincts. Luz Garcia, 1224. Good to see you, Luz. I wrote myself in and won a Republican committeeman in my district here in Pennsylvania. What? You did? That is incredible, Luz. Congratulations. I absolutely love it. I can't believe this worked, but good for you. That is amazing. You are now officially a committeeman. Congratulations. Please keep us informed about how this is going. That's great. Thank you very much for that support. I really appreciate you. Okay. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. So President Trump turning up the pressure on congressional Republicans, demanding action immediately on this generational investment in America's military and election integrity. They've already come out in support of the Pentagon budget. So now the problem that Thune and others have said is that they couldn't get past the 50 votes, meaning that they can't get to the 60 votes. And so we can't pass the Save America Act, and so effectively it's dead. President Trump is giving them the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is. Oh, yes, John Thune. I love John Thune. He's a great guy. You know, but only if he adds the Save America Act to the Pentagon reconciliation budget. If he refuses to add the Pentagon if he refuses to add the Save America Act to the Pentagon reconciliation budget, then he will have confirmed that not only has he ultimately turned his back on America and what Americans want, he will effectively have given away any possible hope of getting the Save America Act passed. If he can't do it through leadership, then he needs to do it through the manipulation of the system. But if he's unwilling to do it through this manipulation of the system, then John Thune exposes himself, not only to President Trump, but also to his constituents and to the rest of America. So President Trump issued a thunderous demand last night, ordering Republicans in Congress to stop playing games, immediately advance a massive new reconciliation package that pairs $350 billion in new Pentagon funding with the Save America Act. This would be the third major reconciliation bill of President Trump's term, following the tax cuts-focused Big Beautiful Bill, the $70 billion immigration enforcement funding package he just signed yesterday morning, and this is legislation, as I said, that can pass the Senate with just a simple majority. We just need 50 votes, and J.D. Vance is the tiebreaker. That would completely bypass any Democrat filibuster and Senate parliamentarian roadblocks that have already killed previous attempts. President Trump laid it out like this on Truth Social. No other president has ever been more committed to both rebuilding our great military and saving our great country. And now is the time to make it happen for generations to come. I am hereby calling on Republicans in Congress to immediately advance and pass the forthcoming $350 billion reconciliation bill, Recon 3.0, which, at the request of our great Department of War, will include the Save America Act as well. So now he's also putting it on the Pentagon, as if the Pentagon is asking for this to happen. No games, no delays, and no weak compromises. Do this ASAP. This is a generational investment in our military, even bigger than President Reagan's. Recon 3.0 is the only path to the full $1.5 trillion military budget our warriors need in order to build the arsenal of freedom. First time I've heard that. We will defend the homeland with the Golden Dome, launch the unstoppable Golden Fleet, dominate the skies with the F-47 and B-21, supercharge our ammunition stockpiles, and achieve total space force and drone dominance. This budget reignites American industry, creates hundreds of thousands of high-paying American jobs, and secures our global dominance without fueling inflation. Also, with the Save America Act, it will protect our elections for generations to come. Our warriors protect our most sacred rights, and voting is at the top. Time to defend that right for every American. Pass all $350 billion and the Save America Act to secure the nation for our children and grandchildren. The Save America Act, 1, all voters must show photo ID, identification. 2, all voters must prove citizenship. Number 3, no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. Number 4, no men and women's sports. Number 5, no transgender mutilization surgery for our children. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I'd love the word mutilization is not real. It didn't exist until President Trump started using it. And I just love it every time I see him write it. So several days ago, Senate Republicans agreed that they have completely failed every single time they've tried to use Save America Act and do it through reconciliation. There was a 48-50 vote. 4 rhinos, including Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Tom Tillis, joined Democrats to kill it. It could have been possible. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has since declared the measure dead, admitting he's not going to fight for it. He's not going to use his leadership to get it done. And at a hearing this week, Collins and McConnell openly called another party line reconciliation bill a pipe dream. But President Trump says, not on my watch. He is now trying the Save America Act directly to be added in to an enormous defense budget buildup that will rebuild the arsenal of freedom and all of the other things that President Trump had mentioned. This is a distinct possibility. And these people, you know what? Collins is vulnerable. She needs to come forward and ask President Trump for an endorsement. If she votes on this and helps get it through, I'm sure President Trump will go ahead and throw his weight behind her. I don't know that it's going to have any substantive help for her in Maine, because they got a lot of commies in Maine, a lot of patriots too, but it looks like there's a lot of weirdos who are totally cool with voting for Graham Plattner. But Tom Tillis will be gone. He unfortunately won't be gone until after we need the Save America Act. Also, same with Mitch McConnell. Perhaps we could get a Democrat like, let's say, what's his name from Pennsylvania, the guy who had the stroke, John Fetterman. Perhaps we can get John Fetterman on board. I don't know. But this is obviously something that needs to happen. So anyways, we'll see. We'll see if this works. I think that this is a good plan. No Thanks Joe says, thanks again, Lisa and Zach, for all your work. Great reporting. God bless and stay safe. You stay safe as well. Thank you to Filter Dog, who also says a young girl in Scotland who defended herself against migrants only to be vilified by the media has now been vindicated in court. Are you talking about the little girl with the hatchet and the butcher knife? Because I thought that she was vindicated in court several months ago. Unless, there could be another case. Very unfortunate, but we seem to have a lot of those cases over there in the UK. All right, now we are going to transition to speak about the Carmelo Anthony situation. First of all, you may recognize this Yahoo right here. His name was Jerome Parker Winston. He was on the lawn at the Carmelo Anthony trial, effectively trying to bait white people into fighting him. He was very aggressive, very much up in the face of people who were doing nothing wrong, just standing there. And you can see here, he looks like a madman. Well, the Collin County Sheriff's Office has confirmed that Jerome Parker Winston was arrested outside the courthouse for unlawfully carrying a weapon. He was one of 2 arrests that were made yesterday after the Carmelo Anthony verdict was read. Here is his booking picture. I think that he probably had a gun concealed on him, and he was not allowed to do that where he was because it was a courthouse. Now, we also have a statement being made by the Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis about the evidence presented in the Carmelo Anthony case. One of the reasons that I think perhaps we have a lot of ignorance among the Carmelo Anthony supporters is because they are fundamentally misinformed about the evidence that was presented at trial. They seem to think that Carmelo was jumped by Austin Metcalf. And although that some people may feel the way they do because of that, I think there's a lot of them who would also not change the way they feel, knowing that Carmelo Anthony viciously attacked an unarmed Austin Metcalf who had committed no acts of violence against him. They are perfectly comfortable with the idea of a black teenager murdering a white teenager because it's a black teenager, and that's it. And I will give you evidence to show that a little bit later on. But first, let's hear from Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis as to why he thinks it is that Carmelo was found guilty?
The strongest piece of evidence is probably the video, because it's not really a credibility thing. You don't have to decide, do you believe this witness or not? If something happened that the video didn't show, then we knew the witness had misremembered or heard something else that they incorporated into their memory. So I think it was very helpful to have the video. The strongest piece of evidence.
I only wish that they would release the video. Let's see it, because then we can push it in the faces of the people who continued to run with the retarded narrative that Carmelo Anthony is blameless in the murder that he chose to commit. Now, because he has been transferred to the Texas State Prison, the authorities in Texas have released his new mugshot. And we can see here they shaved his head. He spent the night in the county jail, and then early yesterday morning he was transferred to the Wallace Pack unit at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice State Prison, which is located northwest of Houston. In this mugshot, you can see Carmelo with a shaved head wearing sleeveless prison clothes. It's also my understanding that Carmelo was placed into solitary confinement for his own protection because they were worried about him killing himself, because he's going to spend at least 17 and a half years in prison. Supporters of Carmelo Anthony continued to rage over the course of the last 2 days. Now, Carmelo Anthony's parents have also begun to do a podcast press tour. They have appeared on numerous programs where the host appears to be sympathetic to their feelings of victimization and their belief that their son Carmelo didn't do nothing. Now, the person who posted this, Cinema Shogun, says Carmelo Anthony's parents are now doing a press tour, playing victim in front of the cameras, any camera they can find. If you didn't know the details of this case, you might think that their kid was the one who was murdered by the way they behave. They're doing the usual everyone is racist thing. It's unfair to black people. Never once acknowledging that they are in this predicament because their son murdered someone. They even try to claim that witnesses lied. The thing about it is that witnesses for both the prosecution and the defense, they all testified to the exact same thing. The circumstances and the memory of the incident did not change whether the witness was there for the prosecution or was there for the defense. And it goes without saying that the number one witness who could have testified on Carmelo's behalf was Carmelo himself. But there's a very important reason that the defense team chose not to put Carmelo Anthony on the stand. It's because he would have had to lie if he was going to testify to anything other than what happened. Of course, he would also have to describe his own mental state and the reason why he brought that knife, and anything that the prosecution wanted to open him up to would then be fair game. If that were to happen, Carmelo Anthony would have been perhaps even convicted of far more than just the murder count that he got, and he would have perhaps been sentenced to a lot longer than 35 years. Let's go ahead and take a look at this report and see where the Anthony family is coming from.
Well, Anthony's family is also talking tonight. They believe the trial was unfair from the start. They do plan to appeal.
Oh, it's also worth mentioning they have appealed. They've also claimed indigence to the state of Texas, which effectively means that Carmelo doesn't have any money to pay for an appeals attorney, keeping in mind that the family used the money from an earlier GoFundMe or Give, Send, Go to move into a nearly $1 million mansion in a gated community. They also bought a brand new Cadillac Escalade. Of course, they got Carmelo some suits, and I believe that they purchased some nice things for themselves as well. But now they're penniless. However, the Anthony family wants to continue to grift off the fact that their son committed cold-blooded murder.
And Molestina to continue now our team coverage.
A day after the trial, Carmelo Anthony's parents, Andrew Anthony and Kayla Hayes, sat down to break their silence and to let the world know how they're feeling as their son begins his 35-year sentence for murder. Despite what a jury found, his parents dispute their son ever wanted to kill Austin Metcalf.
My son is no murderer. My son didn't intend to hurt anyone.
Well, it's not necessary in the state of Texas with the way the murder statute is written to have the intention to specifically kill somebody. Your actions leading to the death of somebody else, that's murder.
My son was defending himself. And that's what hurt so bad.
His mother recounts the moment she addressed the jury and made her plea to them during the sentencing phase.
That's a white woman. Why did they draw her looking like a white woman?
Recounts the moment she addressed the jury and made her plea to them during the sentencing phase.
To have mercy on my son. That's what I told the jury.
No, the judge had mercy on him when he made the decision that Carmelo would not be eligible for life without parole or the death penalty, because frankly, that's what he should have gotten. If he was not going to be eligible for the death penalty, he should have been eligible for life without parole. And that in and of itself was a sense of mercy.
I know they had their minds made up already, so, I mean, really wasn't much I could say.
Well, the evidence was fairly compelling from what I understand, which is why they decided he was guilty of murder.
To change their mind.
Both parents fighting back emotions and tears as they described what they believe was a flawed trial.
We were delusional. We thought we was going to get a fair shake.
They claimed there were inconsistencies from the get-go, despite witnesses who took an oath vowing to tell the truth.
Everyone actually lied on the stand.
Everyone.
Every single person lied on the stand, even the witnesses for the defense. Sure, Jan. Sure. Sure. Sure.
Sure, Jan. All of the witnesses' statements were inconsistent. All of them.
His father says the court of public opinion had made up their mind about his son long before the trial began.
He was convicted when he walked out of the jail. If you looked at the news all last year, he was already convicted. If you look at it, it was already done. It was no innocent until proven guilty. He was already guilty.
He says the threats of violence against them continue.
People want us dead. That's what.
After they still got what they wanted.
After they still got what they want, they still want us dead.
I haven't seen a single person online posting about wishing death or harm on the Anthony family. However, conversely, I have seen quite a few people wishing death upon the Metcalf family. And we'll actually look at some instances of that in just a moment. These people are perpetually victims in their own minds.
I can see, you see, I go look at my phone, people want us dead. They want our family dead.
And now they're preparing to appeal.
They did a number on us.
A judicial process they believe wronged them.
We didn't get justice. A lot of things that were missed that should have been handled a certain way. However, we couldn't say anything. We did what was instructed. We was told. So we just did what we was told.
Ken Molestina, CBS.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do? I mean, the process played out in such a way that the jury understood what actually happened. Now, yesterday I read the statement from Jeff Metcalf, Austin's father. Austin's brother also had his own victim impact statement that he read to Carmelo, and I'm going to read that next. So he said, "You took a son, a brother, a best friend, my best friend from this world. You took someone away from me who was supposed to be an uncle to my kids," Hunter said to the killer while looking him in the eye and asking that he do the same. "I would really respect that," he said when he asked for eye contact. "Now, I want everything taken from you," Hunter continued. "You took everything from me. You still have air while my brother is 6 feet under. I wake up every morning and his door is still shut. You let the devil take over in that moment. Eventually, your name will be forgotten, but my brother's name will live on." Now, Austin's parents both shared their own emotional story of what happened. Austin's mother, Megan, told the court, "Now my conversations with him are one-sided, sitting in his grave. I have to accept that. Instead of walking beside me, he's walking above me." She further described the constant reminder as going into an empty room, empty bed, and once again remembering Austin is dead. Now my house is quiet. His laughter, she said, would fill the room. She described her son as someone who always had a way of bringing people together, calling him a peacemaker. My son was murdered. He didn't just die, she said, directly telling Carmelo Anthony. You should feel lucky because I've been sentenced to a lifetime without my son. And, of course, Jeff Metcalf described Authen's athletic talent, leadership skills, and faith, stating the saddest part is we don't get to see you achieve all these goals. We were robbed. And responding to the sickening public outrage and harassment of the Metcalf family, Jeff said, the public's response sickens me. The moral decay is frightening. My son's death didn't just break my heart. It broke my nervous system. People think grief is sadness, but it's not. It's rage. It's unfiltered rage. And continuing with his statement that I read yesterday, you failed your parents, you failed yourself, and you failed society. You don't belong in this community. And then he pounded the podium telling Carmelo, you can't even look me in the eye right now, but you can stab my effing son in the heart. He further described Anthony's attitude as despicable as he reportedly looked downward, refusing to face the family. Oh, it's heartbreaking, the entire thing. Now, do you guys know that before Cardi B was a thought on the internet and a musical artist, she used to intentionally be a prostitute and lure men back to her house or back to their apartment, and then she would drug them and rob them. So you can already tell where her baseline of morality sits. She hosted a Twitter space yesterday where she complained about the fact that she has to tell her sons that it's no longer legal to stab white boys in the heart.
I sure learned something from this. I learned to tell my sons, if a white boy, do not argue with no white boys, because baby, ain't no law protecting you if something goes down with them. That's what I learned from this case. I'm going to tell my sons, if you argue with a white boy, walk the fuck away, because the law don't protect you when it comes to dealing with.
The law never protected you for the commission of murder, cold-blooded murder, because that's what happened. Now, Jeff Metcalf has also been doing a series of interviews. The father of Austin Metcalf sent the supporters of Carmelo Anthony into a frenzy after he sarcastically called Carmelo a very politically incorrect name. Let's go ahead and hear Jeff Metcalf as he appeared on a Twitter space last night with Sarah is Censored and others who have been covering this.
Let me make one up. Y'all can let me make something racist up so y'all can go viral. I got a new name for Mello, okay? Because he was such this little boy y'all were trying to portray. How about watermelon felon? How's that one strike you? I hope he enjoyed his first night in that cell last night, because he's going to have many nights to think about what the fuck he did.
Damn, son. That's cold. Now, you can listen to the entirety of that interview, but after Jeff made that comment, Carmelo Anthony's supporters went apeshit online. It wasn't even that bad, but here, somebody says, this is the real Jeff Metcalf. The same man playing the grieving father card is simultaneously acting like a bully, calling Carmelo Anthony a watermelon felon and threatening to call CPS on his mother. Go for it. I don't care.
The race card, black fatigue, it's real. I'm sorry. You're the only one in your family without a damn record. I guess that's something to brag about in your culture. I got a new name for Mello, okay? Because he was such this little boy y'all were trying to portray. How about watermelon felon? How's that one strike you?
Ooh. Well, the fatigue is real, and there is truly no other way to put it. This is what happens when an entire group of people play the victims and consistently throw it in the face of the people that they are murdering and victimizing, and telling those victims that they deserve what they're getting. You know, there's no such thing as generational blame. All right. And that is essentially what they're asking for when they ask for reparations to be paid, or suggesting that the people who may have been slaveholders, even though the majority of Americans are not even the descendants of people who owned slaves, that those people are somehow blamed and guilty for the crimes of people who came before them. If that were true, then the same would be true for all black people in the United States of America who are the children of felons, who are the children of criminal actors, or for the descendants of blacks who also owned slaves, or blacks in Africa who were responsible for selling off entire tribes of Africans to, the British or to the Arabs or to the Spanish, whoever that might be. Now, here is an expose on a woman who was an advocate for Carmelo Anthony. Her name is Thelma Anderson. I played a short clip from her yesterday. She said in that clip that she was a lawyer, and that after seeing what happened in the courtroom, she doesn't believe that it's possible for black people to get justice through the courts. And she was presenting herself as a legal voice after this verdict, but it turns out that there is something very important about Thelma Anderson's career that she didn't bother to mention. If you take a look on the website for the State Bar of Texas, they currently list Miss Thelma Anderson as not eligible to practice law in Texas. In fact, her disciplinary status shows that her law license was suspended for disciplinary reasons. So it sounds like she's actually either an incompetent or a dirty lawyer. But it gets worse. The Texas Disciplinary Board of Appeals says Anderson pled guilty in federal courts to wire fraud. She was adjudicated guilty. She received 4 years of probation, and she was ordered to pay $20,871 in restitution to, get this, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, who the Trump administration right now is finding that there is a ton of fraud in that organization. Now, Fox 4 actually previously reported that Anderson was a former Dallas County prosecutor, and she was accused of taking out a roughly $20,000 PPP loan using fraudulent paperwork while claiming payroll expenses for a side business. Fox also reported she had been an assistant district attorney at the Dallas County DA's office from 2016 to 2022. So before she tells anyone that she's an attorney giving serious legal commentary on the Carmelo case, people should maybe ask her, why was the audience not told she is currently not eligible to practice law in Texas? I think that it actually might be illegal. I know that in certain jurisdictions, if you were a doctor and you're no longer a doctor, it's illegal to still claim the title of doctor. And I believe that that is the same for any of these professional positions, that if you are no longer that position, you have to say, I'm a former attorney, or I went to law school and I'm no longer eligible to practice law. I can understand why Thelma wouldn't want to tell everybody that she engaged in wire fraud or that she defrauded the Small Business Administration.
Ms. Thelma M. Anderson gets presented like some serious legal voice on the Carmelo case. But nobody bothered to mention who she really is? Fox 4 previously...
All right, and we already read through that, so we don't need to see that. But here she is, former Dallas County prosecutor accused of taking out $20,000 in Paycheck Protection Program loans for her personal gain. It looks like now that she's no longer a prosecutor, she can't afford to get her hair done in the same way. Of course, she's not going to be on Carmelo's legal team moving forward because she's no longer an attorney. Now, I need to say thank you very much to Denise Ann, who says the murderer of Austin Metcalf did not get nearly as long as he should have. 35 years is nothing when he'll get parole in 17 and a half years. Austin will never have any opportunity to do anything again. You are 100% correct. Thank you to G Fontez. Hashtag believe Carmelo. For what? Does his shirt say didn't do nothing on the back? A mama's BF or Melo's brother couldn't keep a straight face while lying to the edited camera's recording, biting his cheek. Principled Enigma says, when are people going to start taking them at their word? When they say they didn't do nothing, it actually means they did do something. They need to stop butchering the King's English or pay the price. Surter says Carmelo is going to wear the name Watermelon Felon in prison. That's funny. All right. Now, as I said, although the Carmelo Anthony family claims that they have been repeatedly victimized and people have made death threats against them, I have never seen any of that evidence presented. However, the family of Austin Metcalf has routinely, since the very beginning, been flooded with threats of death, people talking about wanting to desecrate Austin's grave. And, you know, they are simply still trying to get through what is the worst event they have ever experienced in their life. Now, TMZ actually reported on this, and they have received at least one of the hostile messages where someone told the family of Austin's brother, Hunter, that he should have died, and that Austin effed around and found out. And that may be the one that we watched yesterday. But there were plenty of other ones. Yeah, that was the one right there that we watched. There are plenty of other instances of this happening all around X. And if we just go look at X, threatening Metcalf family. I saw at least one video earlier today where somebody had said that literally they were going to go dig up Austin's corpse. They were going to piss on it, and they were going to desecrate it in a number of other ways. And it looks like all of the videos of Jeff Metcalf calling him the watermelon felon have taken precedence over this. Oh, here's another one of Carmelo Anthony's family.
We're going to keep fighting.
So do you believe your son received a fair trial?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And we're going to keep fighting. We will not stop fighting for justice for my son.
And as parents, have you all struggled with guilt, you know, asking yourselves, is there
No, they've struggled with no guilt.
anything differently? I know, Kayla, you said you wish you had gone to that track meet. Is there anything that you both wish you could have done differently?
I wish I would have just been rebellious. I was told, don't talk to this person. Don't talk to this person.
I wish I had been rebellious, meaning the only thing he regrets is not talking more shit during the course of the trial. Doesn't regret that Austin Metcalf is dead. Doesn't regret that his son stabbed him in the heart. He only regrets the fact that he didn't talk more shit during the trial.
Person, I feel like it was just a setup. Now, so they told us, go get white attorneys. Every black person I went to a white attorney. No white attorney, they set them up, pushed them. Hey, here you go. I mean, no objections. It was things were smooth. So because as a father of me being who I am, I got to make sure she's straight. This mama bear, I got to make sure she's straight mentally, because if she's not straight, my house ain't straight. I'm not straight. Then so because I got the kids to worry about. I got to make sure his mental health. I can't go back and forth with him right in there because his mental can handle it. The misunderstanding of what daddy's trying to tell you. This ain't a daddy moment.
What a lot of people don't seem to understand is that objections are only appropriate when there is something to object to. If a piece of evidence is presented in the course of a trial, and of course, you know, discovery is the process by which the prosecution hands over all of the defense. They hand over to the defense everything they intend to put forth at trial. If it's true, if there's nothing to object to, then they can't object to it. If the defense attorney had stood up and just said, I object, Your Honor, I object, Your Honor, I object, Your Honor, and there was nothing to object to, the judge would have probably held that lawyer in contempt, and they wouldn't have been allowed to actually defend Carmelo in there. And ultimately, at the end of the day, there was not much they could defend against because the evidence was overwhelming. Now, Carmelo Anthony's girlfriend, Valeria Perez, has launched an official fan page for Carmelo. She calls him my sweet boy. She is now... Oh, how old is she? I don't know. I think she might be like 16 to 17 or something like that. Anyways, she's got this Stand with Carmelo Anthony Instagram account. And I guess that her own profile is now set as private. Hold your head high, my sweet boy. You're not alone. We're fighting for you always. I love you more than words. It's not going to be long before some other thug sweeps this girl off her feet, and she's going to forget all about Carmelo. Perez has been identified in multiple reports as his longtime girlfriend. The page has not made any permanent posts, but they have been sharing messages of support for the killer in their disappearing stories. They had 982 followers as of this morning. And before the trial, Perez maintained a pretty low public profile. Now she's stepped into the spotlight. And after the conviction, of course, she's going to be on the radar of any lech on the internet who might want to find out about her. All right. Now, we have another tragic story here where a young black child, 17 years old, broke into the home of an elderly couple, Billy Blair, 74, and his wife, Virginia Carol Blair, 71, and shot and killed them in their home in cold blood in Mendenhall after Cordarius Lorray Hobbs forced his way inside. That's his name, Cordarius Lorray Hobbs. When two deputies responded to the residence, they were met with gunfire and one deputy was shot. Hobbs targeted the couple during a robbery and is now facing more than a dozen charges, including 2 counts of capital murder, because when you take someone's life, that's what happens.
He says their lives were taken away too soon. This is exclusive video of Cordarius Hobbs making his initial court appearance in Simpson County. He's charged with breaking into the couple's home, killing them, and then getting into a standoff with law enforcement officers. In court, it was revealed that Hobbs allegedly fired shots at 4 different officers and an infant at the scene.
Wow.
All 5 received non-life-threatening injuries. Hobbs now faces more than a dozen charges, including capital murder. He says their lives were taken away.
Absolutely disgusting and unnecessary. We also have a continuation of the meta meme that began yesterday in Jacksonville. Another black woman, again down here in Florida, this time in Tampa, joins in on this trend where black individuals are now assaulting random white people, assaulting them and claiming that they were on the jury for Carmelo Anthony. Now, of course, this is peak retardation because Florida is not Texas. This woman, the People's Advertiser 2026 on TikTok, chooses this white man just sitting there unassuming, doesn't expect that this girl coming up is going to assault him, but she does because she wants to get in on the action of hitting on a whitey.
Hey, bro, weren't you on motherfucking jury selection?
Motherfucking bitch.
Weren't you on jury selection?
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you was.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you was.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you was.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, the hell you was.
I never been on jury selection. Get out of here, you fat fucking black bitch.
Hey.
Now, down here in Florida, we have stand your ground laws. So it's only a matter of time before somebody decides to use their right to protect themselves. Now, Nutty357 says, I can't hear your stream. RP volume levels are too low. They're actually pretty loud. Just clean your speakers or turn them up. Now, we also have new footage of the killers of Billy Schmidt, the black youths who decided to shoot a young man whom they had stolen a phone from before discarding the phone just a short distance away. And here they are. Both of them have their faces covered. One of them has braided hair. I can't tell if this is like a white patch in this kid's hair or maybe it's another hoodie underneath, but he is obviously a little bit more light-skinned than the other kid. Here is young Billy Schmidt with, it looks like his girlfriend, or maybe that's his sister. I don't know, but they are together. And this is the moment that one of these kids, maybe they're young men, I don't know because they haven't been caught yet, decided to shoot and kill an innocent young man who had done nothing wrong. He wasn't even attacking them or demanding through force that they give his phone back. He was politely asking for his phone back. Now we had Cordarius. We also have Cortavius Lorraine Hobbs and Cortavian Dwayne Hobbs. These are different Hobbses, And this one is in Mount Olive, Mississippi. Now, this is also in Mississippi. Is the name Hobbs popular in Mississippi? I don't know. But they have a similar naming structure, and they all have the same last name, but they've all together decided to commit murder senselessly and without any malice of afterthought. So these are two teen brothers, Cortavius and Cordavian. They've been captured after allegedly shooting Covington County Deputy Yates Rodney during a traffic stop near a grocery store in Mount Olive, Mississippi. The brothers allegedly tried to flee, then opened fire with 10 to 12 shots at the deputy. Again, very similar to Cordavian or Cordavius. They led police on a chase before escaping and triggering a manhunt. Officers later found them hiding under a home. Both of them were armed. Deputy Rodney was struck above his vest under the arm, possibly hitting his spine. He is in stable but serious condition at Forest General Hospital. The brothers also have a sibling, Cordavius. Oh, my God, they are related. Cordavius, currently jailed on capital murder charges. It's just a family of murderers. Geez, oh, Pete's. Here they are being put into the back of the police cruiser. Obviously, they didn't come from very good genetic stock because they all have murder on the mind, murder and crime on the mind. Here is Deputy Yates Rodney. Please pray for his recovery and pray that he's not going to be paralyzed and that they can even get the bullet out. Now, it's worth mentioning that there's a reason why people are concerned about violence committed by black youths, because firearm homicides are far more likely to take place when a black youth is involved. This is the firearm homicide rate per 100,000 among black U.S. Youths, well, black U.S. individuals and white U.S. individuals. You've got 19.8 per 100,000 when they're black, and then 1.7 per 100,000 when they're white. Now, just for comparative purposes, we can look at the Hispanic population. It is elevated above white firearm homicides, but not nearly as much as black firearm homicides, 6.4 per 100,000. If we go to Finland, among the entire population, it is 3.3 among 100,000. Austria, it's 2.8. France, it's 2.6. Canada, it's 1.8. And the Czech Republic is tied with white U.S. homicide firearm rates at 1.7 as well. So this is a real problem, okay? I mean, all you got to do is go to Chicago and see how black people are killing each other every single weekend. Now, this is an interesting clip here, and I think that it goes to the heart of the matter of why you have so many people who are supporting Carmelo Anthony. Again, it's just because he's black, and that's it. And it doesn't matter that he might be guilty. They just don't want him to be found guilty because the murder he committed was against a white person. Now, take a look at this. This woman served on the O.J. Simpson jury, and she reveals a shocking fact.
Do you think that they're members of the jury that voted to acquit O.J. because of Rodney King?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
How many of you think felt that way?
Oh, probably 90% of us.
90%? Did you feel that way?
Yes.
That was payback.
Uh-huh.
You think that's right?
%90 of the jury believed that O.J. Simpson was guilty of murder, but he killed a white woman and he killed a white man. So it was payback, and so it was okay. Is there any wonder why there were no black jurors on the Carmelo Anthony jury pool? If there were, they were disqualified if they said that they would be unable to be dispassionate. Now, I think that this is really important, and I want to make sure I play this after going through all of those examples, because this is not every black person in the United States of America. And white people are not the only people who are fatigued by the behavior of certain segments of the black population. Black people are also fatigued by this. This woman is absolutely fed up with the black people who are supporting Carmelo Anthony and who are wishing death on the Metcalf family and that are out there every single weekend killing people senselessly, black or otherwise.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Being black right now is completely embarrassing. You niggas are some of the most vile, inhumane species that have ever graced the earth. For days, I've watched black people jump around like monkeys, act a belligerent fool, act a whole entire nut over a decision that somebody chose to do. And now, y'all are out here harming innocent white people in the name of Carmelo Anthony. You know, I again, as I've said before, I am a Christian woman. And I know that the Lord don't make mistakes, but I just know that he has to look at the nigger population and know that he definitely made a big time mistake with y'all. Since I'm on the road with keeping it real about you niggas, let's keep it real. Y'all with this nigger mentality mindset is holding white people hostage. And you're holding white people hostage for some shit that you did. Cause see, you niggas have been violating God. Y'all have been violating God since the biblical time. Y'all have been so disrespectful to the word of God so bad that he put a curse on us. He said that your kids and your kids' kids and their kids are going to feel the effects of your disrespectfulness. And it's so crazy because to this very day, y'all still continue to defy God. We are the reasons that we are at the bottom of the totem pole. No other race is responsible for why we are here. The same behavior that's happening now was the same behavior that happened back then. And because of that, we are still reaping what we sow behind it. We put our own self in bondage. We put our own selves in captivity. All because of our stupidity. It's all because of the bad behavior. What do we say? We know when a person has learned their lesson through changed behavior. And the behavior is still the same. We have not learned nothing. Because we have learned nothing, we are continuing to rot as a nation of people. That is why I am so grateful that God has separated me from the majority of you niggas. And I know a lot of y'all don't like when I use the term nigger. But you have to understand that this is a subset of black people. It's not all of us. It is a subset of us that displays this animalistic behavior that make y'all think that we as a people, that we all act like that and we don't. And I hate to say it, but until the mindset of black people change, this Carmelo Anthony case is going to be a continual thing. Black kids will continue to die. While this case is closed, the headlines will still continue. We are always the usual suspects and common denominators in everything. And until that changes, we're going to expect more funerals on the horizon because y'all don't believe in change. Y'all not going to change the problem. And it's just going to be a continual cycle. So let's just be prepared to see more Carmelo Anthonys in the future. Y'all be blessed.
Yeah, she's absolutely 100% correct. Let's see. I read that one. Surtur says Carmelo is going to wear the name. Oh, I read that one. Sherry K47 says, big shout out to our last high school grad, Grace. Congratulations, Grace. She has crushed high school, graduating with a 4.7 GPA. Dang. 4 broken track records and 7 varsity letters. Best of all, she's a based USA loving patriot. Grace, congratulations on your success, and hopefully your accomplishments will allow you to go on and do great things in your life. Very proud of you, Grace. And I'm sure Sherry is as well. All right. Thank you to Darla, who says, hi, Zach and Lisa. I heard today that Jake Lang was arrested outside the courthouse for terrorist threats, saying he should hang for the murder. I think he was arrested, I believe, 2 days ago in front of the courthouse, and I've been looking to see some type of an update on it, but I haven't seen anything. Let's see. Is it Merlin IV? 80-year-old actual repressed generation is pure Gen X generation. We use all offensive words. Why? Because it's our constitutional right. That doesn't mean your hurt feelings by words validates violence all. PSYOP, patriot. No, you're absolutely correct. And the hurtful words are just words. You can choose to be offended by them or not. And if you get offended by them, that's on you. All right. Now, we are going to transition to finish out the show, round it out with some talk about fraud, because 2 former Utah clerks have just been arrested and charged with helping illegal aliens avoid ICE. They are Jennifer Joma, she's 27, and Lauren Kelsey Morrow, 26. They both are from Logan, Utah, and they were indicted on the 3rd of June. It was not announced by the DOJ until yesterday. Joma and Morrow are charged with conspiracy to transport and harbor illegal aliens, harboring illegal aliens, and obstruction of proceedings before departments and agencies. Joma is also charged with transporting illegal aliens. Now, according to authorities, Joma and Morrow were working at the Logan City Municipal Justice Court when ICE agents arrived at the court to arrest an illegal alien. 2 female clerks learned that ICE was at the court and helped these illegal aliens slip through the back door to evade arrest. After sneaking the illegal aliens out the back of the courthouse, Morrow and Joma laughed as they flipped off the surveillance cameras. You dumb bitches. According to the DOJ, on the second trip, Joma drove off with 3 illegal aliens in her car before returning alone to the courthouse for work. An indictment was unsealed, and 2 former Utah State Court clerks have been arrested after they allegedly helped an illegal alien evade ICE arrest. This is the full announcement from the DOJ. The clerks also allegedly obstructed immigration proceedings and the lawful enforcement of the U.S. immigration laws by helping at least 1 of 3 illegal aliens escape out a back door of the Logan City Municipal Justice Court so that ICE could not arrest or deport them. According to allegations on April 9th, 2026, Joma and Morrow were working at the Logan City Municipal Justice Court in Logan when ICE enforcement and removal officers entered the Justice Court to arrest an illegal alien for immigration-related charges. The ICE officer had an administrative warrant for the illegal alien who was at the Justice Court for a hearing. The ICE officer left the secure area and eventually went outside and waited in his car for the target to leave the courthouse before trying to make the lawful arrest. As alleged in court documents, after Joma and Morrow learned that ICE was there to arrest an illegal alien, they took steps to identify ICE's target. These steps included misusing court databases to determine the alienage of everyone who was listed on the court docket. During these searches, they identified multiple non-U.S. citizens, and before those non-citizens would leave the courthouse, Joma and Morrow would intercept them. ICE's intended target was among the unauthorized aliens whom Joma and Morrow helped slip out a back door of the courthouse. Joma and Morrow led the individuals down a secure area, several hallways, and eventually out of the courthouse without being seen by ICE. After sneaking out the back door of the courthouse for the first time with an alien, Morrow and Joma were spotted on a surveillance camera, waving and smiling at it, and Morrow used her middle finger in an obscene gesture at the camera. On the second trip, Joma drove off with 3 illegal aliens in her car before returning alone for work. Now, I hope that these girls end up in prison, because I believe that for each of these instances, they could get, I think, like 5 years in prison. So send them away. Let's see it happen. Now, this is not a fraud situation, but it is an immigration-related situation. The media in Idaho reported this week on a Boise area Lyft driver who is found guilty of rape and kidnapping. Well, that Boise area Lyft driver was a man named Zakaria Muhammad Al-Mazjub. He, of course, looks like a regular Idaho boy who just happened to be involved in the raping and kidnapping of girls that he was driving around in his Lyft vehicle. Obviously, not somebody that we should have here in the United States. Now, this is an interesting one because the Texas Department of Public Safety and U.S. Border Patrol detained a group of migrants that were illegally crossing the border into the United States near Roma, Texas. This happened on Sunday. Among that group of migrants was a Russian special interest alien. It was a woman, and she was flagged as potentially posing a national security or counterintelligence risk to the United States. You can see her right here. She doesn't exactly look like the normal type of person that you would see trying to sneak into the United States, but she's bringing with her a fairly large laptop, and she may be wearing the clothing that you would expect to see the illegal aliens wear as they're trudging through the desert. But here she is. God, where is she in this photograph? Oh, here she is. This is her right here wearing this hat. Now, that looks to me like some type of like this is like a counterintelligence operation. Like, yeah, she's an operator of some type, and she would definitely be on the radar of the authorities to go ahead and intercept her before she comes in. This is like honeypot material, am I right? I mean, like, this is definitely somebody who would come here and try to weasel their way in. Maybe she was trying to come in as a, the show The Americans, the illegals. They have KGB have people living here in the United States under fake identities and setting up a life for themselves. And the only thing they're doing is spying. So pretty interesting here that they were able to intercept this girl and bring her in. Hopefully we can learn more about it. My contact at Border Patrol, if you hear anything about this particular special interest alien, I'd be very interested to know what the deal is. All right. Now, Health and Human Services has just announced they are investigating the Council on American Islamic Relations over their misuse of federal funds. Now, this was at the behest of Representative Chip Roy, who's, of course, leaving Congress at the end of this term. In April, the delegation has called on Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to suspend funding for CARE California and their affiliates and initiate debarment proceedings. This was done after the Department of Justice investigation was launched more than a year ago into the alleged misuse of federal funds related to Afghan refugees. Now, the Council on American Islamic Relations is, of course, an organization that has long-standing ties to other terrorist organizations, which includes Hamas as a U.S.-designated foreign terrorist organization, and combined with documented financial mismanagement and misuse of federal grant funds administered by the Department of Health and Human Services, they pose a grave risk to national security, and they render CARE unfit to receive taxpayer dollars. The DOJ investigation was launched in response to a March 2025 Intelligent Advocacy Network complaint filed with the DOJ, urging it to investigate CARE-CA's alleged misuse of federal funds and EOIR accreditation violations. It questions millions of dollars that CARE California received from the federal government, including an Afghan legal services project. It alleges that CARE Louisiana is not a legal 501c3 entity and alleges accreditation violations and alleges CARE has ties to Islamic terrorism. In response, the DOJ's Executive Office for Immigration Review launched their own investigation. HHS Assistant Secretary Gustav Cirillo on Tuesday contacted California Governor Gavin Newsom requesting cooperation. He reiterated that HHS has the legal authority to suspend or debar recipients of federal grant funds from participating in federal welfare programs if violations are confirmed. Now, the California Department of Social Services has subgranted more than $27 million in HHS-originated funds to CARE California for Afghan refugee and entrant assistance programs. Congressman Chip Roy and other members of Congress have informed HHS that there may be connections between CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood and its Palestinian branch, Hamas. So HHS is conducting this investigation to ensure taxpayer dollars are not being funneled to entities that conduct business or have ties with terrorism. Of course, CARE has refuted these allegations, and they sent a letter earlier this year to the U.S. Senate subcommittee about their work with Afghan refugees. They also maintain that IAN is an apparent front group for the Israeli lobby, whose primary purpose appears to be smearing critics of the Israeli government that post various conspiracy theories about CARE and other critics of the Israeli government. Now, two things can be true at the same time. They could be attempting to smear the Israeli government. Okay, I got no problem with that, but they can also have ties to terrorist organizations. Roughly over the past year, as Roy campaigned for Texas Attorney General, he increasingly filed bills related to Islam, Sharia law, and care. Now, the bills have no likelihood of passing out of the House, and Roy lost the Republican primary. Roy has also co-chaired a Sharia-Free America caucus in the U.S. House, holding 2 hearings at which no Islamic scholars or Islamic experts were called to testify. A group of 119 U.S. House and Senate Democrats have rebuked the caucus, led by Representative James Clyburn, Democrat of South Carolina, who will, of course, no longer be a sitting congressman after the end of this term. He's the chair of the Democratic Faith Working Group, and U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, the guy who had margaritas with a Maryland man, have said ugly voices are growing louder and threatening to strip away our First Amendment rights to freely participate and practice our faith and to violate the constitutional prohibition of government picking one religion over another. There's one thing to practice your faith, and then there's another thing to plan terrorism. We must oppose efforts to spread racist and xenophobic misrepresentations that sow more ignorance and hate. The premise underlying this caucus and the measures associated with it reflect long-standing Islamophobic narratives and anti-Muslim sentiment rather than any demonstrated policy need. To be clear, American Muslims serve this nation in every capacity and are entitled to the same constitutional protections as all other Americans. I don't know about that. I'm going to go ahead and say bullshit on that one. CARE Director of Government Affairs Robert McCaw also said the so-called Sharia-Free America Caucus is not a serious policy effort. It's an anti-Muslim hate group and election year distraction masquerading as a congressional caucus. Its proposals are rooted in Islamophobic conspiracy theories, not any legitimate legislative need. Congress is right to reject attempts to single out American Muslims and undermine our Constitution. I think they should go. The DOJ and HHS investigations remain ongoing as Americans are commemorating the 25th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And, of course, Islamic terrorism remains a real and active threat after more than 18,000 suspected terrorists were released into the United States during the Biden administration, which include the Afghan men who committed terrorist attacks and attempted terrorist attacks in Washington, D.C., Texas, and Virginia in a one-week period, as well as others being arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need to keep going, and I think we need to go harder on that. Let's see. Merlin also says the mainstream media, cabal evil elites, stars, Satanists, WHO, NATO, NGOs, along with both Democrat and Republican lobbyists are the threat and want civil unrest to save their asses, to hide illegal crimes, funds, souls, body parts, women, and kids. You are absolutely correct. And, of course, the truth is that the enemies are in the House. The call is coming from in the House. All right, now, a whistleblower that we've spoken about previously who had come to the Waltz administration about the fraud she was seeing in the Minnesota Somali population has now once again gone public, but of course in a much broader sense. She spoke and testified in local Minnesota congressional hearings or legislative hearings. Now she has been given airtime on Fox News, and she is speaking about her time, 20 years within the Minnesota state government, and her direct experience as being a whistleblower and having that used against her.
Telling Fox she faced retaliation after sounding the alarm about fraud inside the state government, as the White House refers top Minnesota Democrats like Governor Tim Walz for a potential criminal investigation. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin, live from Chicago with the latest. Hi, Mike.
And, John, there's been a lot of recent developments with the House Oversight Committee releasing their findings. The vice president is calling on the Justice Department to investigate whether Minnesota officials harassed or intimidated whistleblowers. And a state employee tells Fox she faced retaliation for speaking up. Faye Bernstein is her name, a 20-year state employee who worked in behavioral health services. She says she warned state leaders about weak oversight of contracts and grants years before the fraud scandals came to light. Bernstein says she was eventually sidelined, ostracized, and placed on investigatory leave. She told the House Oversight Committee she worked in an environment where employees feared being labeled racist for questioning fraud or mismanagement. Bernstein says that is exactly what happened to her.
Oh, it was very intimidating. You lived in fear of being called racist. And that is life-changing. That changes how you walk around in the world and how you do your work. I am not confident speaking up about things anymore. It is very impactful.
The House Oversight Committee says it interviewed nearly 30 Minnesota whistleblowers. Some allege that after reporting fraud, DHS investigators photographed their homes and vehicles, monitored their phones, and sought information about their children. Governor Tim Walz said he was unaware of employees being threatened, but that would be intimidation. Any intimidation, he said, would be inappropriate. Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison have rejected claims they ignored warning signs of fraud. Now, the vice president said if Minnesota officials facilitated fraud, lied under oath, or harassed whistleblowers, they should be held accountable. Now, Bernstein says she doesn't believe criminal charges are warranted, but said some state officials should be fired over their handling of the fraud. John?
I'd say that criminal charges are warranted, especially if people like her were retaliated against. That is an illegal act. Also, simply allowing for those fraudulent actions to continue, that is an illegal act as well. Now, we have the case of a lawful permanent resident from India who was living in an upscale community, Corona Del Mar. He was busted after he defrauded a bank of nearly $100 million. His name is Mahender Makhijani, 44 years old, a lawful permanent resident from India, residing in the upscale enclave of Corona Del Mar. He was arrested yesterday morning on a federal criminal complaint charging him with bank fraud. Now, Makhijani, Makhijani controlled Cantor Group V LLC. This was a California Newport Beach-based outlet that had a lending deal with a federally insured bank. Now, under this agreement, the bank would advance nearly $100 million so that Cantor could originate on or purchase real estate loans, but they could only do it if they were first lien only loans. That means that Cantor would hold the top position on the collateral. Now, instead of doing it the way that the bank required, Makhijani and a subordinate spent months between September of 2024 and April of 2025 systematically falsifying title insurance policies. They pulled an Obama administration and used Adobe software to doctor these documents. They would make it appear that Cantor was the first lien position on these loans, but actually other creditors would hold the lien ahead of them in line. They would also alter the metadata, strip it out from these documents. They would also print out the fake documents and then rescan them and then submit the bogus records to the bank, which would allow them to collect this $100 million in money. He also didn't stop there. He personally joined teleconferences with bank reps and then gave them misleading explanations. In December of 2024, he caused a spreadsheet full of false information to be sent over to the bank. The bank, of course, relied on these lies when deciding to keep advancing funds. If the truth had come out earlier, the bank would have declared Cantor in default and demanded immediate repayment of the full $100 million. If he is convicted, Makhijani faces a statutory maximum of 30 years in federal prison. Now, Darren Leon, the acting special agent in charge of the IRS Criminal Division of the Los Angeles Field Office, stated, "Today's arrest highlights the strength of IRS criminal investigations' financial expertise. As alleged, Mr. Makhijani falsified title insurance records, concealed true lien positions, and used a network of shell companies to mislead a federally insured bank out of nearly $100 million. Our special agents followed the money through layered transfers and disguised accounts, uncovering a scheme designed to deceive at every turn. When individuals manipulate documents and abuse financial systems for personal gain, IRS criminal investigations will expose the truth and ensure they are held accountable. When criminals are allowed to deceive lenders, the spillover effects can harm consumers and businesses," Bill Asaley said. Today's arrest highlights our office's continued determination to combat threats to our nation's banking system. Now, also, we have another case of H-1B fraud in California. Sampath Rajidi and Sridhar Madha, both 51 of Dublin, California, just pled guilty to conspiracy to commit visa fraud. Now, Rajidi was the operating manager and owner of two IT staffing firms. One of them was called S-Team Software, and the other was Uptrend Technologies. Madha was the chief information officer at UC Agriculture and Natural Resources in Davis. So the scheme was they would file H-1B petitions claiming foreign workers would staff these University of California projects. Mata used his UC title to make it look legit, but the jobs were fake. They never existed. Once the visas were approved, they would quietly market those workers to other employees, having already gotten a slot in the H-1B system on false pretenses. Both of them face up to 5 years in prison plus $250,000 in fines because they're guilty. Sentencing is set for July 30th. And this, again, is a very familiar story. We keep hearing this over and over and over again. Here is another case coming out of North Carolina. A woman in North Carolina was indicted by a federal grand jury on conspiracy to commit immigration fraud, making false statements under oath on immigration documents, and unlawfully procuring citizenship, committing mail fraud, and wire fraud. This indictment is just one of many federal fraud cases pursued under the leadership of President Trump and the newly established task force to eliminate fraud. Her name is Brittany Shireen Curry. She's 26, of Charlotte, North Carolina, and she's a Jamaican national who entered the United States on a 6-month B-2 visa August 27, 2015, but she never left. Curry allegedly paid a third party to arrange a fraudulent marriage between herself and a U.S. citizen for the purpose of obtaining immigration benefits. Curry and her husband met for the first time on the day of their marriage, and they never lived together before or after. After the marriage, Curry became a lawful permanent resident of the United States. She joined the U.S. Army, which allowed her to become a naturalized U.S. citizen immediately instead of having to wait a minimum of 3 years. She also allegedly provided false information about her marriage under penalty of perjury in immigration documents filed both online and via the U.S. Postal Service. After she became a U.S. citizen, Curry used her status to petition for her mother to become a lawful permanent resident of the United States. All of the immigration applications were initially processed at the U.S. Immigration and Citizenship Services National Benefit Center in Lee's Summit, Missouri. Less than 2 years after joining the Army, Curry applied for a medical discharge and was awarded VA disability compensation. Curry claimed her husband as a dependent for the purpose of her disability compensation, which increased her monthly benefit, despite never having lived with him and not having seen him since before she enlisted in the Army. All VA disability compensation benefits pass through the Treasury payment operations at the Federal Disbursement Services in Kansas City, Missouri. The charges contained in this indictment are simply accusations and not evidence of guilt, but under federal statutes, Curry is subject to a sentence of up to 20 years in prison on the wire fraud and mail fraud charges, up to 10 years in prison on some of the immigration charges, and she faces the possibility of being denaturalized. The maximum statutory sentence is prescribed by Congress and provided here for informational purposes. So I believe she will be denaturalized. She will go to prison, and then she'll be shipped back to Jamaica. Now, also good news that Somali fraudster Saeed Abdullahi Ereg, who was on the list of the top 10 most wanted fraudsters, has surrendered to the FBI after fleeing to Kenya. This is the first arrest from that new most wanted fraudsters list. On Wednesday, U.S. Attorney Daniel N. Rosen announced that Abdullahi Ereg has peacefully surrendered to federal agents at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. He spent nearly 2 years overseas while facing charges in what has become one of the largest COVID-era fraud schemes in American history. Ereg was the owner and operator of Evergreen Grocery and Deli in South Minneapolis. He was indicted June 24th of 2024 for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and money laundering. He exploited the federal child nutrition program during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a program meant to feed children in need, and allegedly obtained, misappropriated, and laundered more than $4.2 million in taxpayer funds through his business, which operated under the sponsorship of the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. According to his court documents, he was the owner of this business, and he filed all of these false reimbursement claims, which added up to $4.2 million. There were times where Evergreen Grocery and Deli claimed to have served more than 3,000 meals twice a day, 7 days a week. His wife, Najmo Ahmed, also worked at the business and received payroll payments directly from Feeding Our Future. Ahmed pled guilty on February 24th of 2025 to 1 count of money laundering. She is scheduled to be sentenced June 15th of this year, and a federal arrest warrant was issued after he was charged, but authorities could not locate him overseas until now. This is the first arrest from that FBI's Most Wanted Fraudsters flyer that they put together. He communicated through counsel that he wanted to return from Kenya. He surrendered to FBI agents, and the arrest was made. Glad to have you back in the U.S., just so we can put you in prison and then get you the hell out of here. All right, now, funnily enough, not every homeless person in Skid Row was willing to subject themselves to committing election fraud. Here we have a young woman, well, a woman on Skid Row who was approached by these scamsters, but she actually didn't go through with it.
And I met a man at the train depot, and he said, "Are you a registered voter?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, that's okay. I want to pay you to vote." And I said, "Again, I'm not a registered voter." And he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to North Hollywood." He said, "Oh, I'm going the same way just by chance. I'll meet up with you there." And he did. We both got off the train. He said, "Come over here and sit down." I sat down with him and I said, "Again, I'm not a registered voter." He said, "Oh, that's fine." He pulled out his phone and he said, "Do you got nice penmanship?" Well, yeah, why? Okay, here's the names. What I want you to do is write this name on this form and then sign the signature, and I'll pay you. I said, "I'm not doing that." "But I'll pay you." I said, "I don't care." "Oh, okay." Then he walked away. He was trying to pay me to do voter fraud. And
again, all of these instances have been handed over to the U.S. Attorney, Bill Asaley. Now, here, it's being covered by a Fox affiliate in L.A., where they've dug up even more instances of people on drugs and homeless being paid to commit election fraud.
Would you want to speak with us real quick? No. The heart of LA's homeless crisis on Skid Row. What's it like out here?
It's nice. Fun.
It's fun? Mm-hmm. Now the center of concerning questions about signature gathering and voter registration.
They're just trying to collect signatures, get paid, and so in return, we'll offer you a few bucks, and there you go on your merry way.
Some say they've never seen it.
No, we have never seen any of that.
It's happening. For sure it's happening.
Others say it happens all the time. How often do you see these signature signer people?
Every day.
People on Skid Row with clipboards accused of offering money or cigarettes in exchange for signing documents.
What I want to know is, why don't they just have some, like, undercovers out there? Like, put some people on the streets and have them ready to intercept these people so that we can arrest them, because it's obviously happening everywhere.
We'll pay you to fill out a petition. Cigarettes, here you go. Money, here you go.
What kind of stuff do they want you to sign?
Just those are like petitions and stuff like that?
It's like promises like housing, or, oh, this is for like a new governor or something like that.
What address do people put on there?
Most people use that just right there.
Do they also try to get you registered to vote?
They can, but that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. But yeah, they try. They have a way to register you to vote.
Earlier this week, Brenda Armstrong pleaded guilty in federal court to paying another person to register to vote, which is illegal. According to her plea agreement, Armstrong spent nearly 2 decades working as a paid petition circulator, oftentimes on Skid Row.
It's the biggest group of mass people, gathered in one place. But also you have the most people who won't do nothing without a dollar because they're half of them on drugs. You know what I'm saying?
Outside LA City Hall, only about a mile away, some people say that they see these signature collectors here as well.
It's that you sign, like you're voting.
You gotta sign us this.
So they give you the name to sign?
Everything.
So you're not even giving your own name? According to the California Post, voting records show 1,160 people with a voter registration.
All of them living there at that homeless shelter, which, of course, they are not doing. Here is another young woman who was paid to vote. And, of course, we don't need to watch another one because we got to end the show. But before we do, As a result of all of this being exposed, the Trump administration has pulled massive funding from the LA Homeless Agency because this is happening. The LA Homeless Services Authority, which is funded by the city, county, state, and federal government, has gotten nearly $1 billion since 2021 just from the federal government. So this top Trump agency is now cutting off funding for the Los Angeles agency responsible for coordinating billions of dollars in homelessness spending because they are accusing them of obvious fraud and wanton mismanagement after repeated failures to safeguard taxpayer dollars. The funding comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is, of course, a member of the White House Fraud Task Force led by Vice President J.D. Vance. They are immediately suspending the funding that goes to the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, or LAHSA, and federal funding from HUD's Inspector General is investigating potential offenses by the agency and their leadership, according to a letter that was sent to the LAHSA board chair Wendy Gruhl and their CEO Geeta O'Neill. This was obtained by local affiliates. The letter detailed conflicts of interest, financial mismanagement, fraud, lack of oversight, and more from the homelessness agency, which has faced efforts by the city and county to take it over. The move now puts one of the country's biggest homelessness bureaucracies under direct federal scrutiny after years of criticism that billions have gone into homelessness programs in LA while the crisis remains even worse and entrenched on the streets. LAHSA receives funding at the city, county, state, and federal level, with the group getting nearly $1 billion from the federal government since 2021, according to HUD. Suspending LAHSA's participation in federal government programs is a necessary step in accomplishing that critical mission in Los Angeles, HUD wrote in the letter. LAHSA's failures have been so severe and pervasive that Los Angeles County has withdrawn its funding for the agency, and the city of Los Angeles is considering doing so as well. LAHSA's top executive, Valencia Adams Kellum, resigned last year after she was found to have been party to directing $2.1 million in federal funds after LAHSA's control to her husband's Santa Monica-based nonprofit employer. HUD says federal judge last year also concluded that LAHSA had committed obvious fraud after it allegedly kept requesting funding for an 88-bed shelter even though it knew the shelter was operating at roughly half the capacity. HUD also noted in their letter that the judge considered placing LAHSA into receivership at that time. LAHSA's inability to verify the existence of nearly 2,300 housing sites for which it was responsible is another recent issue that has plagued this provider, according to HUD, which said 70% of the contracts for those sites did not disclose any expenses over the prior year. Homeless encampments line the boardwalk at Venice Beach in Los Angeles amid ongoing concerns about crime and quality of life issues. The Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority will conduct its annual point-in-time count to assess the number of unhoused people in the region. Public audits of LAHSA, meanwhile, found a pattern of routinely paying service providers late and poor record keeping, preventing it from monitoring contracts, including $5 million in cash advances sent to 5 different service providers. In November of 24, the city controller's office found that LAHSA failed to spend $513 million in public funds budgeted in the fiscal year of 2024, blaming a lack of staff and old technology. Other audits concluded that LAHSA's poor record-keeping made it unable to accurately identify or calculate how well its spending had been benefiting the homeless population in Los Angeles. Federal Trade Commission Chairman Andrew Ferguson, who is a member of the task force, praised the leadership on this issue from HUD Secretary Scott Turner, President Trump, and Vance, who serves as the chairman of the fraud task force. Los Angeles didn't care about helping the homeless, but the Trump administration does. It is unconscionable that Los Angeles has wasted billions of taxpayer dollars that was supposed to be used on housing our nation's most vulnerable. Instead of providing a roof and care for the homeless, Los Angeles has used these funds to line the pockets of left-wing NGOs. Such a disgrace ends today. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass and LA officials have pointed to recent homeless count data as evidence the crisis has begun to improve, with LAHSA reporting that countywide homelessness fell for a second straight year in 2025. And Bass saying it marked for the first time in the city's recent history that homelessness has declined for 2 years in a row. But the numbers still showed more than 72,000 people experiencing homelessness across LA County. And critics have continued to argue that modest declines do not erase years of runaway spending, encampments, and repeated audits, finding that the region's homelessness system has failed to adequately track whether taxpayer dollars are producing results. Spoiler alert, they are not. So the federal action from HUD comes as the LA City, as Los Angeles City and county officials had already begun backing away from LAHSA. The city council moved to explore bypassing the agency and contracting directly with providers, while the county moved to redirect hundreds of millions of dollars in annual homelessness funding away from LAHSA and into new county department, citing the need for stronger accountability and a series of audits. HUD cannot ignore LAHSA's wanton mismanagement of public funds. HUD's mission is to reduce the plague of homelessness in America. Turning over billions of dollars from American taxpayers to an organization currently under investigation and suspected of gross misuse of federal funding and obvious fraud does nothing to reduce homelessness. Indeed, diverting dollars from worthy programs to LAHSA merely makes the homelessness crisis worse. Now, finally, Bill Asaley commented on this issue. He said the Trump administration is committed to accountability and results for taxpayers when it comes to homelessness funding. We will continue to investigate and prosecute anyone we believe fraudulently obtained public funds intended to house the homeless. Last year, I created the Homelessness Fraud and Corruption Task Force, which has already made significant arrests in this space. One case was Alexander Suffer, 42 of Westwood, the executive director of the Hyde Park-based charity Abundant Blessings, who was accused of misusing more than $10 million in homeless housing funds. Between 2018 and 2025, his organization received more than $23 million to provide housing and meals for hundreds of vulnerable Angelenos. Instead, he allegedly fabricated invoices, lied about vendor payments, created a fake board, and failed to offer adequate food or services to participants. While the city of Los Angeles and LAHSA paid for safe shelter and 3 nutritious meals a day, residents got little more than ramen and canned beans. Meanwhile, Suffer allegedly diverted public money for personal luxuries, including that $7 million Westwood home, private school tuition, luxury travel, and a property in Greece. The betrayal of public trust at the expense of LA's most vulnerable is shameful and illegal. The federal government will no longer bankroll incompetence and criminality at the expense of taxpayers and those in need. All I can say is it's about time that this is finally happening. Now, as they have been paying attention to the problem in Los Angeles, you can bet that Bill Asaley and the others on the fraud task force have also been taking note of the people who have been engaging in illegal activities. This is going to be a devastating blow to the homeless industrial complex in Los Angeles City and County, and I can only hope that it leads to more arrests and people being held accountable. Final thank yous that I have for people over here on Rumble and on Pilled. Principled Enigma says Sharia law is in direct opposition to the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It is. The fact alone should ban Islam from gaining any root in this country, which means the mosques should go away. I agree with you. Merlin also says, how does POTUS and the Patriots truly eliminate, and permanently keep all corruption in out of the Republic official positions? So I think you're asking, how does President Trump fully eliminate fraud from the system and people that would engage in fraud? I think that the only way to do it is to really go after the people that are doing it, and that means that you have to prosecute people who are in positions of public trust. And as much as I dislike new legislation, I think that perhaps tougher and stricter legislative avenues for people who are engaged in positions of public trust and committing fraud need to be explored. Meaning that if you are committing fraud, if you are committing illegal acts, like, there needs to be more avenues put in place to catch these people before they get too far down the road. And here we are years later and hundreds of millions of dollars are missing. And then Merlin, finally, Florida, F around, find out. Justice coming. Execution 6:25 at 6 p.m. for Dusty Spencer, Florida, 30 years in the making. Will serve on justice on death row. Inmate since 92 when he took my nephew's grandma's life. Thank you, Ron D. Oh, man, I'm sorry that you have a personal connection to that case. But yes, good to see that he's finally going to be put to death. And finally, Mesmerist with the $20 rant. Thank you for that. She says, red pill, you rock. You rock as well. Thank you for that. All right. And then Abanon17 with the 210 gold pills. Thank you, sir. And then Filter Dog 1 says, thank you for honest news. I appreciate you, sir. I'm going to just go ahead and check over here on Cash App to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Got to wait for it to open. And yes, Chris Sullivan says, thank you for all you do. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you, buddy. I'll go ahead and throw a heart on that so you know that I got it. And then Kelly, I actually said thank you to Kelly on the 2nd. So thank you for that. And then I don't think anything came through on Ko-Fi, but I am going to go ahead and just check to make sure because sometimes, oh, it does say I have 4 new tips. Ah, okay. So PD77, he says, add this money to double the lung fund, Zach. Thank you for that. Okay, $25, and I will add that on there for you. Appreciate that. Family Man 66, that was from 2 days ago, and I said thank you for that. Family Man 66, thank you for that. All right, you guys, I'm about to peace out. Got to go get some dinner with the family. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for being here. Please make sure you hit the like button on the way out. Please make sure that you help us out by sharing the show. And definitely share it with your families. Tell everybody that you should be watching Red Pill News because this is where the real shit lives. Good luck. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow right here at 5 p.m. Peace. Oh, looks like a late arriving rant from SJ Taylor 11. Thank you for that. $20 rant says thank you and love your show. I appreciate you. Thank you for that donation.